hello, today is January 15th, and some of your bills might be due, so make sure to pay them.
It's kind of rare for bills to be due on the 15th, isn't it? I guess
that's like the midpoint. That's where, like, see, I scheduled like half of mine to come out at like, so you have like rent at the beginning, and then some of your bills in the middle, and then some at the end. I scheduled them spread out.
I've noticed that no matter when you join Patreon, it always charges whenever it charges.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't care. Even if you only had it for like a day.
Which is another reason for people to abandon Patreon.
Oh, yeah, don't do that. We're using, I don't know if everyone's seen the tweet, but we are using Ko-fi.
Yeah. So
As
you
well
have
now?
that as an option, alternative option.
Do we
Yeah.
know the actual, because you guys have pronounced it both ways every time I've heard you say it.
We don't know.
I like to say Ko-fi, but I feel like that's probably wrong, because it's supposed to be
Isn't
like
it-
you're
'Cause it's
buying
like
them a
buy
cup
us
of coffee.
Right,
Yeah.
wasn't that one of Patreon's early tags? Is like buy these guys a cup of coffee or something?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It's
I don't-
exciting.
I don't drink coffee because of the stones. So it's false advertisement for me.
Coffee's delicious, though.
We don't have an easy way to integrate the reward tiers either, so thank you.
Yeah.
You got to do it purely out of love.
We've gotten a few people who've done it, though.
Well, it's the big news this week is, if you want to call it news, is CES, of course, and the green versus red mud fight.
Versus blue.
Blue in there a little bit. We'll start with blue.
When you mix red and green, it just turns into brown.
That was a color joke.
It is a color joke.
You were talking about poop. Intel demonstrates a 10-nanometer Ice Lake processor and promises PC will ship with it later this year. Well, they promised that about 2019, too. Let's not forget.
Well, they've been making a lot of promises
2018.
about chips for a lot of time.
Now, I was at Computex in 2018, and I saw that 5 gigahertz 28-core monster that was going to be out in time for Christmas. Christmas was like last week.
Last week, it was like a month ago almost.
And there's no 28 core. There's nothing.
Well, AMD is looking to capitalize on that delay, that inability of Team Blue, and they're saying, you know what, 10 nanometer, a bird in the hand, a 12 nanometer in the hand is better than a 10 nanometer in the bush.
Or a 7 nanometer in the bush, but I don't know. Because, Circuit Breaker has the article, AMD's new 12 nanometer Ryzen laptop chips look to put pressure on Intel. So AMD has a partnership with a number of laptop manufacturers, and at CES there were a number of compelling laptops based around these chips. Not just Ryzen, but also, the Athlon APU, so that's like 2 cores, 4 threads. But all those CPUs are 4 cores, 4 threads, plus graphics. And there were 3000 series. They were noted or put in as 3000 series, but 7 nanometers. Where is 7 nanometer? Where's all that 7 nanometer production going? Well, it turns out it's not just processors. It's also graphics cards.
I gotta say, the comments on that build video, it makes you completely understand the political situation that we're in, because the adherence to a brand for no reason other than adherence to a brand. And it's up until this point, I'll say up until this point, it has been true that they could not touch Team Green when it came to pure graphics performance.
Now, some people are only here for the news, so you should tell them that you did a build video for
They'd use an Nvidia graphics card, and everybody's like, "Where's Vega? Where's Threadripper? You don't like the things that I like."
Threadripper's not going to make Dwarf Fortress go faster. I'm sorry.
But here's the good thing: if you are one of those people, you might actually be in competition for having a good graphics card.
AMD announces the Radeon 7. It's like V2, but it's not, I don't know. It's next generation 7 nanometer graphics card. So they put out the Instinct last year at Computex. I was there for that. And the Instinct was, performance oriented for businesses. This is a very similar approach, 7 nanometer, but it goes on sale February 7th. So expect coverage. It's like my wallet is ready. So, yeah.
And it's going to be comparably priced to the 2080. And it's supposed to compete with the 2080, not the 2080 Ti.
Now, the exciting thing about this is that the Vega cards generally have been better, even in the 1080. I think even in the 1080 Ti in terms of stability for content creators. I've been doing some experiments with Vega versus 10 series cards in Premiere. Can Premiere handle stuff? And it does seem like even Vega 64 handles it better. So the Radeon 7 may be great for content creators. It's exciting.
Now, if you're hardcore Team Green, but you're hurting for the opposite reason, being that you're just poor.
You're hardcore Team Green, but you got no green in your wallet.
There you go. There's a little bit of hope for you as well.
The Nvidia GeForce RTX 2060 review, reasonably priced ray tracing. We didn't get an early one. We do have one on the way, so we're going to be able to mess around with it. It's priced around $350. It's really weird though.
$350.
Yeah, it's about $350. So there's 4K gaming. It's not going to do that. There's 1440p gaming, and there's 1080p gaming. And for 1440p and 1080p, there are cards that will do a better job. So I don't know. This 2060 is supposed to be about like a 2070, maybe a 2070 Ti. I don't know. We're going to put it through its paces and see what it is. It seems like it's in an odd spot price to performance wise, because it's not going to deliver 4K, but there are less expensive cards that'll do 1440p. So
they did point out it was oddly good at VR in testing. So if you want like a
high FPS VR,
maybe that's his niche. Yeah,
entry level VR, but you know, like you still want to play all the games, that might be something for you.
The big news too that came out of CES was AMD or Nvidia is going to support AMD's FreeSync. They're not calling it that; they're calling it G-Sync compatible, because we must not acknowledge the competition. That's the thing they seem to take.
Oh, they acknowledged it, and in fact, he directly disputes what you just said. He says it simply will not work, as well as some other derogatory things.
Yeah, Gizmodo has the article. The Nvidia CEO saw the 7, which really caught a lot of people by surprise. No one was expecting a new AMD GPU. And the CEO, Jensen Huang, says AMD's new GPU, the performance is lousy.
I kind of doubt that they sent him a copy to test.
Yeah, he probably doesn't know.
Well, I like lousy is the hardest roast he can come up with too.
It's also a little bit disingenuous, because Nvidia has become such a huge behemoth that it almost seems like that they're, you know, throwing a tantrum about just a tiny, tiny bit of competition.
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You destroy the competition before it can become... That's like the king murdering his sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do that. Well, there was a big story about AT&T this week, and this headline is sort of the end of the saga, so we have to back up and talk about what was discovered. So there was, I can't remember which website it was, but they found out that bounty hunters have access to location data from your mobile phone.
We're not talking about video games here. We're talking about real people.
Right, and so they decided to test that. So they went and found a bounty hunter, and they were like, hey, we want you to find the location of this phone number. Can you do that? And he was like, I can do that for $300. They used their own phone number, so they knew where they were at a given time. They paid him. Sure enough, he came up with it. And so based on that, they sort of worked backwards and figured out AT&T was just selling stuff.
The Motherboard article has AT&T is going to stop selling location data to third parties after Motherboard's investigation. This is not the first time this happened. You used to be able to buy copies of people's cell phone bills. I mean, AT&T and all the other communications companies have found very creative ways to monetize your data, because, let's face it, they're not adding new subscribers, and they want to keep growing and making all kinds of money. So what sort of ways can you be monetized?
It's kind of terrifying to think about, like, in the event of, say, like you had a stalker or something like that. Like, it's just that easy just to pay for it.
Yep.
Or I'm sure private detectives could probably do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here, remember the prison that was able to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So it shows that they knew that this was a problem. They just stopped the prisons from using it.
Yep.
They kept, and these are third-party companies. So it's not AT&T doing it directly, per se. It's AT&T indiscriminately selling it to third parties who then give access to the bounty hunters. So it's basically AT&T just like covering up their eyes and ears. They're doing the Helen Keller challenge. And they're saying, we know you're not using this for anything bad, right?
That's foreshadowing for the rest of our news. Maybe
No,
Fridays.
It was from last week. The Helen Keller was from last week.
Well, but we're going to have we've got another Helen Keller challenge coming up later in the nonsense.
Somebody didn't read the news story.
Listen, I have no excuse this week. Usually I'm working with 3-year-olds and I don't have time, but
This week your heater exploded.
it did explode. Well, it didn't explode and kill anybody, but like it completely crapped out, so I've been dealing with that.
It had to be replaced.
Yeah.
Violently.
Well, one thing that you won't have to replace if you buy this incredibly overpriced one is your SD card.
Circuit Breaker talks about, CES Lexar's 1 terabyte SD card. It's the first you can actually buy. So SanDisk demoed one of these, but it's 1 terabyte. It's about $400 from B&H Photo. You can order it now. But you can get a 512 gig card for around $150. So,
yeah, but when you're shooting that the amateur porn on 4K,
4K uncompressed RAW.
You don't want to stop in the middle of it and swap cards. That ruins the mood. So it's totally worth that.
Definitely need the 1 terabyte card.
1 terabyte.
Yeah, you could take your camera out of the Ziploc bag a little less often.
That's a specific kind of homemade. Oh, Boiler Snake is very familiar with that.
He's got lots of ideas about what he would film with that 1 terabyte.
I know all about that kind of stuff. I've had the problem so many times. Oh, wow.
He's very noisy.
Well, Krista, you will be excited to know that one more hobby can be added to your list that includes rolling things up.
Okay. LG introduces OLED TV that rolls up and disappears when you're not watching it. This image is not accurate, but that's fine.
There it is.
Look how happy that guy looks, though.
Well, he's high as fuck.
Yeah.
So this part will roll down into the base, and it can also roll half height or quarter height, and just give you like a little multimedia music menu if you don't want to watch TV, but you want to use it for other things.
This is going to revolutionize tiny houses. Tiny house builds change the game.
Aren't tiny houses usually very economically minded?
They are, but there are some people who build like luxury ones now, and they're kind of expensive. And it's like I don't really. I think you missed the point.
Well, this one's going to be
building a luxury tiny house.
They haven't priced it, but they say it's going to be similar to the 8K, which is $15,000.
I think that's reasonable part of your budget when you're building a tiny home.
I might be Captain Obvious here, but wouldn't this be better mounted to the ceiling?
I imagine it would work both ways. You think you could?
Yeah, if you want to save floor space.
Yeah, I mean, like imagine this like at the foot of your bed. It's like when it's down, it's going to feel a little claustrophobic, but then you can hit a button and it just retracts into the ceiling. That would be nice.
You know who else is going to love this? Cats.
Or dogs. Rue would like that. She'd poke at it with her nose.
They'll launch across the room and start biting the corner of it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have an OLED TV anymore.
Well, you have one with small holes in it. Dead pixels. Well, one thing that so here in the country, we don't have scooters. We have the green bikes.
Yeah.
It's just bicycles with GPS.
And you do see them everywhere, just abandoned. Right now, it's not so bad because there's no students.
Does anyone just take those? Like, what happens to those? Does someone come and have to go get them? Like,
somebody hucked one on a roof of a local building.
That is the what the story is about. Is what happens when they're left alone. So, in larger cities, the answer is they get impounded, and then that's where the controversy starts.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation has the article. It's like, Bird Rides demands a takedown of a news report on lawful reuse of scooters. So you get one of these scooters impounded, and then you can buy it at a police auction. Now the company could buy it as well. Like if it's impounded, they just pay the fine. They can get the device back.
Yeah, they could. Well, they wouldn't even have to buy it. They could just retrieve it.
It seems like that something has gone very wrong with lots and lots of venture capital here. Like if I were a venture capitalist, I'd be freaking out. But they're not protecting their property or managing it or anything like that. You buy these at auction. You do an electronics swap. And then you get a perfectly nice electric scooter. Well, they sent Cory Doctorow a takedown request because he was talking about people talking about that. But that's on DMCA grounds. But the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Cory Doctorow handed them their butt because that is insane overreach. And I'm glad that they targeted him because if they targeted anybody else, they actually tried to get his Boing Boing account. They were like, hey, you have Boing Boing, you have a writer that's doing some really bad stuff with the DMCA. And if it was just like you and me, Joe Random Public, that Boing Boing probably wouldn't have even looked at it.
Every time you say Boing Boing, I kind of giggle a little bit.
That is a stupid website.
Yeah.
But our name is stupid too. Yeah. So the thing about it is, they point out, even if he was like, hey, here's how you can buy crack in West Philadelphia, that's all First Amendment. There is no shutting that down. I mean, you can tell about illegal activities in an article. That's
how we got the Fresh Prince.
That's not a problem. So this is completely baseless. And this points out, as many things have, the problem with DMCA is there is no consequence if you abuse it.
Yeah.
And there will continue not to be.
Yeah.
Well, the Tesla subsidy issue here in America is probably going to slow down their sales. They're talking about reducing prices. So they need to branch out. They need to find a new market. And today, they're doing just that.
Elon Musk has broken ground on Tesla's Shanghai factory. I think they paid $140 million for the land here, and they're going to produce Teslas in Shanghai. This is going to get rid of the whole international tariff thing. They can sell them to mainland China. A lot of new wealth across the pond, and this is going to be good for Tesla, probably.
I like to imagine that they had the Boring Company just drill a hole straight to China. And then they just, wherever they popped up, it's like, we'll buy this land.
But
I'm sure that Elon Musk is like, can we do that?
That would still be quite a bit of shipping, don't you think? I mean,
well, it could be automated. I mean, if you had a straight hole, you could just put them on a thing.
You could drop them halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd have to drive the other half straight up.
That's how science works. Have you seen the movie The Core?
Well, you could go through the
like
Earth's
that.
crust at an angle. So, like, you would be, at your deepest point, you would be like 7 miles underground or 8 miles underground, but you'd be under the ocean. But
That'd be terrifying. That's like,
instead of going down and back up, you just go across.
That would be even more travel.
I was thinking from like California to Shanghai. If you're thinking from like New York to Shanghai, then that's going to be like thousands of miles underground.
But
I mean, this is all insane. But that would be extra insane.
You're just reducing the curve of just doing it over
the
curve. So it's not even that much of a saving.
Yeah.
Although if that was just, empty, you could drive your Tesla at max speed. What do they do? Like 120, 140?
If you're just trying to flex on people, yeah.
I was thinking more like the pneumatic train. Like you just literally build like a wagon train of them, do the pneumatic compression thing behind them in the vacuum tube or whatever, and they're going like 600 miles an hour plus in the tube. I mean, it's like airplane speeds, but underground.
That's quite a bit of infrastructure. Yeah. Anyway, they're not going to do that. They're going to build them over there. So the matter's settled.
Although, wouldn't it be cool if he got around the tariff by having a secret Boring Company thing? Where it's like magically the inventory was just wherever we need it, and you couldn't. Never mind, it's a national security issue, but
you could never prove that they drilled a giant hole in the crust and just
imagine what Huawei would be sending back through that hole. That's like the Stargates. Once you open them, you don't know what you've tapped into. Well, Facebook has, Facebook has done some stupid things in 2018 at least, and it seems like
of tapping into the Stargate.
It doesn't look like 2019 is starting off. Of course, this happened in 2018, but we're just finding out about it.
Facebook reportedly sought advice from anti-gay evangelical Tony Perkins. Facebook privately sought advice on policy decisions from the founder of the hate group Family Research Council. Good Lord.
Yeah, these are like the pray the gay away people. And they were advertising the re-education camps and stuff like that.
Whew.
I don't know who. It doesn't name names.
It's going to be a yikes for me.
I don't know who was seeking this advice. Could it have been the Zuck himself?
I don't think so.
That doesn't strike me as who? Because don't they all? Weren't there other articles about Facebook where it was like, you can't be liberal here or you can't be conservative here?
Right. Yeah.
Have there been any high level Facebook executives that have left because Zuckerberg probably would have personally fired that person? Because I don't think. I mean, Zuckerberg has never, to my knowledge.
Oh yeah, there was the one guy. Remember who? They had to buy him out.
That might be the guy.
You think he was gay?
No, well, anti-gay.
But you think he was the one contacting them?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. That guy was. I didn't get that.
I don't know. Like, what could they possibly consult on that would earn them money?
Well, it's not just like he's famous for anti-gay stuff, but he is. It could just be like the Christian. It's always bothered me that the president's called up the one guy. Who's the famous televangelist?
I don't know.
But it's like you're asking that guy for advice. Like Bush always did that, and I was like, whoa, that guy is clearly a snake. How?
Maybe you should call Bezos. Because Bezos is going to be able to.
I think Trump would be too proud to call anybody.
If Bezos is not Lex Luthor, he's definitely Santa because they're jockeying for access to your house at all times. Not even just Christmas.
Yeah, Amazon is. So we've had the Amazon Key program that has been renamed the Home Key. Why would you rename it? Because now there's a garage key.
Amazon will soon offer to deliver packages to your garage so they don't get stolen. So maybe giving them access to your front door is not the best idea. Maybe putting them in your garage or your vehicle, as we've learned about. Also businesses. So if your business requires a fob to get access to the building, you can give Amazon access and then they can just beep right in. What could possibly go wrong?
Absolutely nothing.
This is, I guess it's a little better. I mean, there's usually not anything in your garage that's insanely valuable that's easy to steal. Now, they might take your lawnmower, but they have to load it onto the
gear.
truck.
That's valuable.
I got a case of cat food and I'm down a lawnmower.
Several pallets of water. But yeah, so this is, it's like the other one. They've got an app. They don't have like a fob, but they show up to your house. There's an app, and it can be sort of like two-factored through you and Amazon. So the delivery man's like, I'm at the house, and then you get a notification, and you're like, yes, I expected this, and you press the button to open the garage door.
Can you leave milk and cookies for your delivery driver? That'd be cool.
I did that for the people who repaired my furnace, or like, completely replaced it. I left like empty cups, like clean ones with spoons, and then I left marshmallows and hot chocolate packets, and I said, help yourself, but they didn't take any.
And they left you some mud all through your house.
Well, they also fixed the heat, so I mean, I can't complain too much. But
that is their job.
Is it new and amazing, or is it like recycled?
When I came in the other night, I didn't even realize the heat was on. It was so quiet because the other one just rumbled and like shook the floor and stuff, and it was like, oh, the heat's it's warm in here, and I don't feel like the house is gonna fall down. Check the serial number on the old one. It was probably from like 1982.
Wow.
That's about what you'd expect from one of those units. Of course, that unit will never make it that long.
No.
Because it's new.
No.
Yeah. They've gotten the obsolescent science down by now.
Well, Amazon, we've heard about xCloud, the Microsoft game streaming service that they plan, where you don't get to keep your games at all. You buy them, but you don't get them delivered in any format. Microsoft keeps them. And Amazon said, that sounds like a good business model.
GeekWire has the article that Amazon is reportedly working on game streaming services, talking to publishers about signing up. So this would be, I guess, where like the game runs in the cloud. But I think the difference with the Microsoft thing is that the game is going to try to run locally to try to avoid like the lag, the latency problems. And this doesn't sound like that. This sounds like you're going to get games on Fire TV that are rendered somewhere else, which is not going to be fast.
It's not going to work.
The Microsoft one did a hybrid approach where it took some parts of the game, like hit detection and stuff like that, and did it locally, and then sent that back to the cloud. I don't know how Amazon would do it.
Seems like it's not going to end well.
They could download, a partial version of the game.
If we're talking about Android games, like I want to play Peggle. Okay, I believe Peggle was going to run on a Fire TV.
It's funny that one of the most popular things that the pirates do with modern ROMs, like Nintendo ROMs, is just strip out all the video and garbage and give you a very tiny functional version of just the game. It's faster. It loads faster. Everything's nice. You don't have to watch any of the splash screens or anything like that. So it's like, oh, you made it better.
Speaking of things not being made better.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. If you own some shares in AT&T, you might like this news.
I don't think so.
If you work at AT&T, you decidedly do not.
Motherboard has the article, AT&T preps for new layoffs despite billions in tax breaks and regulatory favors. So internal documents obtained by Motherboard show that the company is preparing layoffs. Mega mergers, deregulation, and tax breaks aren't providing the public benefits that AT&T promised. So this is just the beginning of, I think, what's going to be a pretty big bombshell. Because remember when AT&T bought, I think it was DirecTV, satellite distribution company. They were like, this is going to be great. We're going to do all this stuff, and it's going to be awesome. And then they were trying to do some of the cell phone stuff. They're an infrastructure provider. I don't understand why anybody would be surprised by this. I mean, it's completely against what they said.
Well, if you go back and look at almost every mega merger, they always promise the same thing. Better for consumers because it will lower prices. And better for the market because it will create jobs.
Well, yes. And a big part, when we covered this, a big part of what AT&T was saying was, look, two companies can't afford to invest in the infrastructure necessary to do all this. We're going to need all these employees to carry out our infrastructure upgrades. But once again, the infrastructure upgrades have completely disappeared.
But every merger, those have been total lies.
Yes.
They always raise prices and they always cut employees because it makes sense. There's got to be redundancy in employees when you merge.
Yep.
And you now have a more monopolized market, so you can raise prices.
Yep.
And they always will.
And it's not even like we're going to lay off these people that are in production, and then we're going to hire a ton of linemen to actually run our fiber optic network and do all this stuff we've been putting off for 20 years. And so it's like we're on a hiring frenzy, but we're also laying off a bunch of people. I can understand that. That would be okay. But they're not doing the infrastructure upgrades. They literally just plastered over 4G with 5G. And that's like, they didn't actually do a 5G rollout, and they're going to get away with it. It's terrible.
Yeah, they always do. And that article points out, you know, it's never happened the way they promised it's going to happen, and yet our regulators continue to choose to believe it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work for us.
Well,
as a taxpayer, I demand a refund. Like, we gave you some money to do some stuff, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. I want a refund.
We'll go ahead and contact the IRS. Oh wait, there's no one answering the phones. I remember getting a phone. I can't remember what the phone was. It might have been a Samsung. And I was going through and just removing all the garbage apps that come with it, the bloatware. And I got to NFL TV, and it was like, you can't. There's no uninstall option. And so I Googled it, and it was like, no, you can't uninstall NFL TV from these phones. And I was like, what? How stupid is this? But at least NFL TV, as far as I know, doesn't have a history of spying, selling data, invading your life in every way possible.
Yeah. Well, Bloomberg is finally saying, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? So in the technology section, they've got Samsung phone users perturbed to find they can't delete Facebook. I don't know. I mean, it's been this way since the Galaxy S8. You guys are a little slow to the uptake here.
Well, somebody figured it out and tweeted about it, and it became a bit of an uproar.
Didn't matter until Cambridge Analytica did it.
Yeah.
Well, that was a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh, they've had a lot of other bad press since then.
You can disable it, but no one is sure if that means it will stop tracking. And Facebook and Samsung are not answering that question.
I've noticed that for apps that I disable, that they will still sometimes get updates. And then I have, like, on the screen, it's like you can uninstall update. And then it's like, this thing has been disabled the whole time. Why does it keep getting updates? The
best you could do is just take it back to the stock install.
Yeah.
Which is maybe now a security risk. So, I don't know. Well, Apple did not have a lot to say at CES. They certainly didn't want to talk about the XR because that's embarrassing. But they had to say something, right? So they just said a lot of something that amounted to nothing.
Yeah, Tim Cook said that Apple will announce new services this year. Everybody's speculating that's Apple TV. It might not actually be Apple TV. We don't know. Why is this news?
Yeah, we almost cut this story, to be honest.
I don't know if you noticed, but it was Apple that said it.
And that's important.
Tim Cook is a genius. Yeah, Apple TV, it seems like, is coming in pretty late to the game. They might have the infrastructure to compete.
Who would pay the premium, though? Like, they would have to have some sort of innovation to make it better than other services, I would think.
No.
Yeah, no innovation. Now, they have been investing a ton of money on programming, but I don't think we've heard about any specific programming.
No.
Right? Maybe they're waiting.
Well, it's like, it takes a long time to produce content for television. And I mean, it's, a year or 2 year lead time is not unusual.
Yeah. Well, we here at Level 1, for a long time, we didn't use ad blockers because we felt it was a bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
Because, we get money from ads if you watch this
and
on
we
YouTube.
Don't make the news. We want to show you the news.
Yeah, we're using these sites to
aggregate everything.
But they made it
commentary
so difficult to load enough tabs to do this because of the tracking and all of the ads and the garbage. We just literally couldn't do it. It was a technical problem, not a moral problem. And Chrome seems to understand this on some level.
Chrome's ad blocker is going to go global on July 9th. And so it's not blocking all ads. It's just blocking the really egregious ads in an attempt to keep that whole ad revenue-based business model on the internet on life support a couple of more years.
They list, so here's what they consider to be offending ads. Pop-up, auto-playing video with sound, prestitial with countdown, large sticky ads, and then on mobile they add a couple more because of the format that's worse.
Ad density higher than 30%.
So
the sticky ads is like, I hate those.
If you have an ad that offends this list, they will actually block all ads on the site, including their own.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah, it's kind of, with the Google Terms of Service, it's kind of tricky to mix AdSense and non-AdSense ads anyway.
Well, last week, I think, was the first week that broke the combo of stories about failed Windows updates. But
It's because everybody was on vacation. No one was updating anything.
that's true. You know, it was the holiday slowdown.
Yeah, everyone was
But
kinda
the
still
good
out
news
of it.
is they're right back into form.
We might not be working, but you are. Windows 7 users report network errors after the January update. So in a nutshell, if you got a mapped network drive and you came in and you double-clicked on the mapped network drive, it didn't work. And it's because Microsoft doesn't have a single beta tester in the entire building that is worth their salt.
Well, maybe not in the building, but all around the world.
We're all beta testers now.
The Windows 7, the involuntary beta program, has uncovered an issue with the Windows 7 update, and Microsoft issued a mea culpa, and maybe it's fixed now.
Involuntary beta program. That would be a great thing to do if you were releasing like an early access game or something. Well, we talked about was it late 2018 when this came out? The Alphabet scandal.
Oh no!
Yeah,
it was,
I thought it was pretty late 2018 when they finally settled it and he left.
Yeah,
Was
but
it like pre-Thanksgiving?
yeah, it originally
Yeah.
came out at the beginning of 2018 though. And
But
then
It took forever to settle it.
But it came out about the $90 million settlement much
oh
later.
yeah.
So this is about the Google execs who had a little bit of fun with some of the ladies in the office.
You know,
And,
harassed them while they tried to do their jobs.
When it came out, they were just like, all right, yeah, I better go. But hey, how about that $90 million?
CNBC has the article. Alphabet's board has been sued for their role in allegedly covering up sexual misconduct by senior executives. Sundar Pichai said, well, there have been 42 cases of this at Google, which, for as large as Google is, honestly, is not a shockingly large number. And so
These are the ones that have been reported as well, though.
yeah, so I don't know if Google has just gone, like, I don't know if the wrongdoing here is that Google has gone out of their way to not report it, or if the 42 is a high number relative to the number of employees that Google has.
I think that's probably fairly common. I think the problem here is that it's such hypocrisy because they paint themselves as being
Do no evil,
so
let's be
progressive and
Yeah.
This is the shareholders who are suing, and so they're saying that they're actually damaging the shareholders' value in holding shares of the company because they're paying these guys off and protecting them rather than just, you know, letting them go after them as every other company in the world would. So you could also argue that the reason those shares have those values, some of these guys, but you know, high-level executives tend to protect their own. I don't think that's going to change.
Executives going to execute. Oh, wait.
Would be preferable, maybe, but I don't think that's allowed.
Well, 2018 was certainly a year of space flight. There were tons of records broken. We're reusing things. It's amazing.
SpaceX ended up being much better than expected,
And
much sooner.
one of the things that brings us is tons of satellites. But the thing about a satellite is it's a very specific thing. You build it to do one thing, and the speed at which technology moves can sometimes be a problem. So this company claims they have a solution.
BBC News has this article, Quantum, Handover for Fully Flexible Satellite. They talk about how they've launched a new satellite, they've got a bird in the air, and the mission is flexible. The frequencies that it uses and how much transmission power it uses and all the parameters that you normally would hardwire into a satellite are all software defined in this satellite. It can be upgraded through firmware updates, and the mission can be retasked. Purpose can have multiple purposes and missions. So yeah, it's a generic satellite platform for whatever.
Improve the light on this one city in China. Easy.
Now this has to be huge because the thing about hardwiring a satellite is you can make it super small, like a microcontroller. It's very specific. Something like this has to be really, really massive. I think it's 3.5 tons. But I would be very worried if I was these guys about having a pure software solution for something like this, because
It's going to be mining Bitcoin before you know it.
and the odds of something not going wrong and you not being able to restart it with a signal. You think SpaceX will eventually have a rocket that's just like got a tiny little artificial finger
Well, it just
so they can
flips
launch it
the
up there to
switch.
hold the power button for 10 seconds? Restart that bad boy.
SpaceX space robots. I mean, it could be a thing. You never know.
Well, this week there was a blockbuster divorce. Huge divorce in the tech world. And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about.
Kotaku brings us Bungie splits with Activision and keeps Destiny.
Was that your weeb voice?
Yes, it was.
Was
Was it good?
It was not bad. It's not bad.
I've had some practice overseas, I guess. It's been pretty good. So yeah, Destiny. You know, we played Destiny.
Destiny 2.
Destiny 2.
We played Destiny 2.
It was not great.
There were moments where like I started to have fun, and then it was like, just kidding. Like,
enjoy some grindiness.
Yeah, it wasn't great. A lot of people have blamed Activision for making it so grindy, and you know, the microtransactions and the loot boxes and stuff like that.
It might have been a good story. I mean, it had Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, that's what makes a story. So Bungie,
there could have been a lot of different decisions there, I think.
the people inside Bungie seem to agree with this, as they announced that there was a company-wide cheer when this was announced over the loudspeakers. It's also not the first time this has happened. Bungie also had an acrimonious divorce with Microsoft.
Yeah.
So maybe they should stop sucking on the teat of that major corporation money.
I would be curious to know if the creative talent that came up with all the cool stuff that Bungie has done is still with Bungie, or if they have been shed over the years.
Yeah, they may have left by now.
A lot of the time, unfortunately, it's a situation that all the cool people have already left and moved on, and we can't really put the genie back in the bottle, as it were.
They might be able to find some new talent, though.
I think some of the guys who were part of Halo did work on Destiny 2.
Well, those are probably the aspects of Destiny 2 that are not terrible.
Well, you might have seen the hot new Netflix movie Bandersnatch, Black Mirror Bandersnatch. And if you haven't...
It's been in the headlines. How would you describe why it's been in the headlines?
Well, I'm going to say if you haven't done it yet, you might ought to hurry, because there's a lawsuit in the works because of what you're talking about. It is a special kind of movie.
How would you describe the kind of plot? Yeah.
I mean, okay, so the headline is Netflix hit with a choose-your-own-adventure lawsuit over Black Mirror Bandersnatch. So Black Mirror is a series on Netflix that is sort of about the dark possibilities of the future of technology. Really, a lot of the time the stories are based on stuff we're doing now.
I was going to say, you say possibilities, but
a lot of it, I feel like it's predictions.
Yeah, form follows art. Because the governments are like, oh, yeah, we didn't even think of that.
So this is a movie where you watch some scenes, and when the main character has to make a decision, you can choose which
option they pick.
Turn to page 76.
And so there's a company that owns the Choose Your Own Adventure book series, and they're real upset that you can choose your own adventure in a movie.
So are they... Like, I could see them maybe being upset if Netflix used the choose your own adventure phrasing in their advertising campaign, but I don't feel like they would have much of a case if it was just like, no one can choose your adventure except for us. Like the format.
How would you describe choosing your own adventure?
An interactive experience.
Well, it's not really... You are making choices that have real consequences for the characters.
That's like what
viewer
some of those
immersion.
Telltale games are like.
No, see, viewer immersion is more like, you smell that guy got shot or whatever.
First-person viewing.
What do they call the Telltale game? Like a decision-making simulator? I don't...
But that...
Choose Your Adventure is probably the most concise, but if they wanted to avoid a lawsuit, they probably wouldn't have put that in their advertising.
Choose your own, some other word other than adventure.
Isn't this movie also, it doesn't quite work like Choose Your Own, like doesn't it replay the same things that are just slightly modified?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good argument against that. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it really either. I've seen clips, but so everybody go play that because free PR. Or watch it or
I'm
play
reminded
it.
of the, God, what's the movie where it's got like the guy in the bunny suit?
Donnie Darko?
Yeah, I'm reminded of Donnie Darko.
I want a LucasArts style point and click adventure, but with cinematics, like where everything is like every possible. So it's like lick wall, and it's like it's not going to do that, but it's all cinematic as opposed to being sprite animation.
That would be a lot of
a lot of work,
an impossible amount of work for very little payoff.
Well, if you built that with the Unreal Engine, then maybe you could get some help with it.
TechCrunch has the Improbable and Epic Games have established a $25 million fund to help devs move to more open engines after a Unity debacle. We don't know what the Unity debacle is, though.
I've never heard of Improbable either.
Yeah.
They had some sort of falling out with Unity, and Unity pulled their license.
So Improbable can't distribute their game anymore.
So Epic stepped in, and Epic seems to just be drunk with power now that they got this Fortnite money.
Yeah.
They're like, they're in the strip club just throwing around hundreds.
And Improbable was the first date they took to the back room. I guess.
She was the first girl to come and sit on their lap and be like, you know, I got kids in school.
I'm working my way through law school.
So that's probably not bad, though. I mean, you know, it's if you can force the engines to compete and to be more open with that free money, then probably good. I don't know.
This is going to be a story that we report on many, many more times, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the comments probably know the backstory. So yeah, help us fill in some blanks here. Maybe this will be a follow-up.
Well, 2018, in addition to being the year of Facebook's downfall and space launches, was also the year of stupid tweets from Elon Musk. And guess what? He's not slowing down.
Flying Tesla, sure, we calculate the power demands. This is wired. So Elon Musk tweeted that, hey, we're working on a version of the...
he responded to this picture.
Yeah, so it's like, that's the DeLorean from Back to the Future, which is flying. And Elon Musk is like, the new Roadster will actually do something like this.
And they said, oh, haha, that's funny.
Good joke.
And no.
We'll use SpaceX cold gas thruster with ultra high pressure air composite overwrap pressure vessel in place of the 2 rear seats. Wow.
But
what's the use case for this?
No. I didn't notice that before. He said 2 rear seats, not wheels. 2 points of thrust on a rectangle?
No, I read that as he's going to put the machinery necessary for this in the back seat.
Just to create the pressure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wired did the math. And they assumed 20-inch wheels that would turn sideways, a la the DeLorean. And what kind of flight time could you get with those kind of thrusters given the SpaceX technology? That came out to about 2.5 minutes. And that was a full Tesla battery.
Well, and that's more than enough time to get to work, right? I mean,
I suppose if by getting to work you had to jump a small bridge that was missing, that took like 30 seconds, maybe. But that also raises the question of like, how do you rotate those wheels in while it's sitting there? You'd have to jack it up on something.
It would have to not be electric. I'm sure we're going to get the comment that's like, it is obviously not electric powered. We're going to put something that is far more energy dense than
solid fuel.
Well, I mean, can you imagine like the rush hour LA traffic with just vehicles filled with solid fuel? That would be bad.
What does the impact rating change when you're carrying solid fuel in your Tesla?
Somebody hit my car in a parking lot with their buggy, and it
exploded.
Left a 12-foot crater.
You know those like they've got a series of coated triangles that go on the back of big trucks.
Oh yeah,
it's like your Tesla will just be covered with triangles of all the warning signs of things.
Well, it's a status symbol, you know. Some people start getting those stickers just because it's like, I want people to think that I have solid fuel in my car.
You get a call and it's like, hello, and it's like, yeah, are you so and so registered to this Tesla vehicle? Yeah. It's like, you're not going to be able to drive on the interstate today. We're hauling some nuclear fuel up from Oak Ridge. Okay, thanks, because it's too risky.
Or it's like your home is within 5 miles of an elementary school. You're going to get rid of that car. Well, speaking of Mr. Musk, SpaceX, as we said, had a big year in 2018. A lot of big announcements, but it seems like maybe the news was just they were a little too successful.
The Los Angeles Times says SpaceX to lay off 10% of its workforce. So I'm sure they're telling the employees, you're great, but
it's not you, it's us.
Yeah. But the reality is that SpaceX has actually been very, very commercially successful, and it doesn't need the level of engineering talent that it has now. I mean, it's basically where it needs to be. It's an iterative process to get where they are. So it seems kind of crappy. That's like, yeah, everything's great. You're fired.
Yeah.
That's basically
thanks for all your
is.
work.
I mean, it really is.
Do you think those people will just go to NASA, you think?
Those people will probably go to work for competing companies. And so I don't think SpaceX realizes that.
Well, they got Blue Origin and what's his name, the Virgin one.
Origin.
Bezos would be wise to scoop all these people up immediately.
He may have his hands full with some other matters.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, let's talk about how ugly you all are.
CES 2019 skin printer wipes away years from your face. Technically, it's not a skin printer. It's a makeup printer.
Application device.
Yeah, so it uses an optical sensor to read your skin and then selectively paints makeup on your face to hide defects.
So instead of spending time looking at YouTube tutorials about how to do your makeup, you can just cheat code your way in and just
Wasn't this something in the Jetsons? Like, didn't like Judy sit down at the desk or something, and it would just like
do her makeup for her? Maybe this is cool though.
I think this is going to be huge for the tech YouTube scene, because what's going to happen is all the makeup thoughts are going to get this, but they're going to want to modify it and make it better.
I'll say they can pre-program it with their own looks.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they'll get into the world of like ROM hacking and custom firmwares, and it'll bring just tons of gorgeous women into the technology sector. It's going to be fantastic.
I saw one of those makeup things that was two girls that started out and they didn't look anything alike, and they applied their makeup in such a way like by the end it was like these people are twins. It was very convincing.
Yeah,
it's because you're doing the contouring and stuff. Like there's an art to that. I'm wondering how good this really is, but like, although it could be the start of something amazing.
I imagine there will be sort of like a Luddite portion of the thoughts who think that this is just cheating and it's taking away from the art.
Well, yeah, it's like people, digital versus traditional art. That debate's about to come to the thought world, the YouTuber world.
It's like I'm an analog beauty, not this automated stuff. Which is funny because it's like people pretending to be something that they're not, criticizing people who pretend to be easier than they pretend to be.
Yes,
you know what we mean.
Well, actually, you remember when I said that thing about the divorce earlier? I wasn't talking about that one. You know what I was talking about.
Why? TMZ?
This is like I think this is the first time we've ever referenced TMZ.
TMZ on a tech news show. I don't understand. Okay, so Jeff and MacKenzie Bezos, no prenup, $137 billion on the line. They've agreed to get a divorce. So far, things are really cordial. This stock photo is older, but Jeff Bezos looks like he just learned that his cat has died.
She's thinking about, it's like, what island do I want? Do I want to go off the coast of Greece or
is this after they announced that they divorced?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I'll say that looks
like
an
some
older
random
photo.
event.
They're probably not appearing in public anymore.
Oh, he did.
So,
he was at the Golden
together.
Globes. Yeah.
So this is probably the reason.
This is definitely the reason.
Apparently they separated and they've both been seeing other people, so they're just like, okay, we need to like.
Except there's pictures of him with her like from the spring.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he cheated on her.
They're also neighbors.
And she cheated on her husband. Like, I think that, like, I don't know.
She's also married. She's still married.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm going to assume that her and Bezos, like Jeff Bezos, are probably the scumbags in this situation.
Wow.
It's a bold declaration for someone who knows absolutely nothing about their personal lives, but I'm going to say it.
So they are in Washington State? Is that right? And so the law is straight down the middle, which means 137 billion down the middle.
Wow.
And also,
just like that, the Zuck is back on top.
Yeah. That was Bill Gates, I think.
Oh, yeah.
They own like 400,000 acres of property between them.
Yeah,
doesn't that make you sick, though? It's like, God, I just want an acre of land. They have 400,000.
So they got to split that up.
They got a national park.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How big is Daniel Boone National Forest? It's like 386,000 acres, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like most of eastern Kentucky is Daniel Boone. And they're struggling to get certain parts of trail made because some people still own parts of it.
Oh, I bet the trails on the Bezos land are fantastic.
I bet they are. They're probably better maintained than the ones in Daniel Boone.
Like, if you go by an outbuilding and you're like, oh, we're running low on some supply, there's those Amazon Dash buttons.
Like, Alexa and everyone.
Order, like anti-tick spray. Just push a button.
And then the aircraft flies overhead, just spraying.
Drone delivery.
Defoliating the entire forest for your...
But that has got to hurt. Now, they were married well before
25 years.
Amazon.
Yeah, 25 years.
So, in the eyes of the courts,
years.
she's just as responsible for that as he is. I kind of doubt it. But
she did work at Amazon in the early days and like helped him set everything up in the garage, and like he quit his job so he could work on Amazon, and she was supporting the family. So you could argue.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty good argument.
Yeah.
But you got to wonder, is he just going to be like, okay, fine, here it is? Because in your day-to-day life, how is half different?
It's such an astronomically large number.
Yeah.
He will never notice it, right?
Yeah.
It's just on paper. So, I don't know. I mean, but it is, again, it's so much, $70 billion.
I can't even fathom that amount of money.
It's just a shocking amount to give up overnight.
I think it's like so much. There goes my dreams of being a trillionaire by the time.
So Imagine every time he looks at her, he just sees 70 billion printed on her forehead.
That might make their relationship a bit strange. But so far, things have seemed pretty cordial.
Also, if she was gold digging him, that's a harsh blow, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the mine just
But
got
she was
halved.
married to someone else who I thought was rich as... I mean, what? Who knows what these people think?
These
They're
are
not
just,
like
these
that.
are just bored rich people.
Yeah.
You know? So, I guess they get what
25
they get.
years and then throwing it away for your neighbor.
I saw
Your
another-
neighbor's wife.
I saw another article that thought that this might actually be good for Amazon's stock price because
You think?
she might like bring a new outlook to her half of it. Because she is technically half owner of the company at this point, basically. I mean, she'll get half of his shares.
Wow.
I wonder if that makes him less than the majority.
God, that'd be interesting. We'll have to follow this. We'll have to find some more TMZ articles to read on Level 1.
The timeline that I want to see is where she becomes like the queen of the warehouse worker.
A woman of the people.
Yeah. And she swoops in and she's like, we're putting heating units on all these buildings. And you're getting 20-minute breaks every hour. The number of picks per hour is halving. And Bezos is just like, you know, like it's holding his chest.
What do you mean these are people?
I'm imagining a far more dystopia thing where she just gives everybody VR helmets and what they're experiencing is actually like really horrible, but what they're living in the VR thing is like some sort of happy game that's artificially stimulating whatever part of their brain that makes them happy.
They're picking what they see as sort of animated, cute fruits, you know, like little animated fruit, but it's human organs.
Yeah.
See, I think what's more likely is like, despite all these claims that, oh, you know, we're still really good friends and everything, I could see her just like torching
Scorched
it.
earth.
Yeah, like I'm just going to get rid of all the shares and then we'll see though.
Life's complicated. I don't know. We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, it's considerably less complicated when you have $70 billion.
Money might not be able to buy happiness, but it does a pretty good job staving off the boredom.
Tomorrow will be government and probably security, or we could go robot. I don't remember which was more this week. But either way, it's going to be fantastic. So check it out.
Bye. Hello, today's January 16th, and it's another Level 1 news day.
But what news are we covering?
I instantly forgot. I just know that next time, though, it's going to be business and nonsense, and that's going to be weird.
No.
It's not business?
No.
Wait, what is it?
We covered business yesterday.
We did.
It was only business.
But it was
because
something
CES.
weird, though.
Government.
Government.
Nonsense.
It's government.
Is the outlier this week. So oddly enough, it's going to be robot and security today. Two things that too often don't go together.
Yeah, government and nonsense is going to be because like government's going to be serious, then we're just going to go launch straight into insanity.
Well, is government ever really serious? Well, it's serious in the way that it can destroy our lives, but
Yeah.
nonsense in terms of what they actually do. Well, in the robot world, it is. I'm surprised it took them this long to figure out to do this because it seems like an obvious one. But Amazon is bringing in a new fleet of robots.
We got self-driving cars. Now we got self-driving forklifts. Yeah, TechSpot has the article. Amazon could do away with human forklift drivers. So that is going to be a lot of Amazon warehouse employees gone.
That forklift certification is now useless.
Oh.
Don't you feel silly?
There's going to be a lot of forklift operators in our comments that are like, you don't understand.
Well, I'm sure. And, you know, so somebody takes a forklift arm up the ass a couple of times. That's progress.
That's the price of doing business.
You weren't in the green zone. That was your fault.
Now, we have talked about butt robots before, and it's not what you think, you filthy animals. It's a robot that's made to test things like jeans and phones. It turns out the car companies have them too.
Yep. This is from The Verge. Ford's robot butt for testing car seats can now sweat.
Booty sweat.
So, yeah, look, it's a robot butt that tests car seats to make sure they'll last at least 5 years.
How sweaty of a butt do you think that is?
It's going to
It's
sweat
1
1
liter.
liter.
Rate
exactly
in
1
the
liter.
comments, chat.
And so this guy just pounds into these seats thousands of times to simulate, you getting in and out of your car over time. And now it'll do it dripping with simulated sweat.
I like to imagine it like it it malfunctions and it just like starts really banging on there, like twerking on the seat, but covered in
It
sweat.
goes into booty clap mode.
Oh,
Well, maybe one of the most bizarre stories that's ever come to the robot section
From CES,
is,
no doubt.
it comes from CES, and it's just like this unassuming robot just minding his own business.
An autonomous robot was hit by a Tesla vehicle that was also in autonomous mode. But this is weird because there was no police report or any other details. So there was this company that was making this autonomous advertising robot, and it was like driving around CES and then
Promobot is what it's called.
It wandered into the road. It was not supposed to be in the road, and it was hit by a Tesla Model 3.
So they had more than one of these robots, and they made it sound like they rounded them all up, and they were like, "Okay, robots, let's all go to the trade floor," and they followed them like little baby ducklings. Except one got lost, and no one noticed.
This sounds like the movie Short Circuit, where like one of the military robots was hit by lightning and wanders off, and no one notices.
So they are, of course, Wired has looked into this, and they're saying there's no police report, no report from the private security at the venue. Nobody has seen. They also said there was a suspicious-looking rope laying on the ground near the robot that could have been used to pull it away at the last second and topple it over. And they can't find the guy who was driving the car.
There was a quote from the guy that was driving the car or something that was like, "Oh, I just barely bumped it."
But that was from the press release from Promobot.
Yeah. But then the CEO of Promobot, or the commentator from Promobot, was like, "Well, we were going to try to do this at CES, but now it's not going to work." So one wonders if they had some sort of catastrophic technology failure, and we're like, "We're going to blame it on the robot wandering into traffic."
They would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those pesky kids.
They also point out that the Tesla autopilot, or whatever they call it, is not for a situation like that. You would not autopilot through a busy tech conference venue. That would be stupid. And the guy's statement was, "I just got this Tesla and I figured I'd test it out. Why not test it out at CES?" And it's like, none of this makes any sense at all.
The picture is even bizarre. Like the photo, it looks like something from like a Bigfoot sighting.
How could this happen?
Well, the next headline seems horrific.
Also, how could this happen?
But when you read it, it gets less horrific, but just more WTF, maybe.
Kind of sad.
Yeah. So ZDNet this is a follow-up from a story that we've covered a few times, but anonymous hacker gets 10 years in prison for DDoS attacks on children's hospitals. After a house search, a hacker tried to flee to Cuba in a boat, but needed help, and then he was rescued by a Disney cruise ship. And this comes from like 2014, and that, as far as I can tell, they didn't even charge him with like trying to escape or anything like that. But the DDoS attacks were like the low orbit ion cannon thing, I think, from Anonymous. And the children's hospital story is also really convoluted.
Yeah, it's about a girl being separated from her family because of a diagnosis that was a misdiagnosis, and that's what caused these people to do this weird activism with DDoSing, and it's just a bizarre story all the way around. I think they finally fixed the diagnosis, and that story had kind of a happy ending, except for this guy. But also imagine the peaks and valleys of this guy's final days.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't know anything was up, but then he found out, I guess, he was going to go to jail. So he fled in a boat, but he didn't pack enough food. So he's starving in a boat for a few days, and that's a valley. That's
a low valley.
He's thinking, well, the first valley is, I'm going to prison. Oh, but I can escape. Small peak. Oh, but I'm starving to death in a boat. Oh, but there's a Disney cruise. And imagine the opulence of a Disney cruise. That's a huge peak. And then actual prison valley. So
at least you got to go on a Disney cruise before you got picked up.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, I don't think that the punishment fits the crime at all. Like, there was obviously no one who knew anything about technology on that jury.
Well, you think it was...
I mean,
should have gotten less?
Well, it wasn't just him that participated in the attack. It was a distributed denial of service attack.
I think he might have spearheaded organized it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I agree. I mean, taking a children's hospital down, though,
that's pretty shitty.
That's pretty stupid no matter what you're trying to accomplish.
That's true.
I mean, how many children were affected?
Negatively, yeah. And that's a big deal.
So that's kind of like, I mean, 1,000 rights... or 1,000 wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah. I think he learned his lesson, though, probably.
Well,
maybe.
Speaking of things that are not properly punished, I think these crimes should be death penalty. All day long, whether it results in a death or not.
Ars Technica has the article, Facebook executive swatting sends significant police response to his home. Armed police respond to a hoax that he shot his wife and tied up his kids and planted bombs. So this is a Facebook executive who was swatted, basically.
And of course, we all want to see Facebook executives suffer. But this is still wrong.
Swatting, yeah. It's a level of trauma that's hard to recover from.
Well, in America, we've got a paramilitarized police force, so there was not, there was double-digit percentage chances that the police were just going to randomly shoot people that were on site.
I bet the only reason that he didn't get shot was that his address was in a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
And one would think that maybe the wealthy and the people in power would look at this and say, maybe this paramilitarized SWAT response is not what we should do in these types of scenarios. But instead, what's going to happen is there's going to be a list created, and you and me are not going to be on that list.
But they believe that paramilitarized police presence is what stands between them and the plebs.
Yeah.
I mean, look at France.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what those cops are thinking in France. Because that's a blue-collar job. Why don't you just step aside? It shows the power of,
the psychological aspect of that.
That people believe that it can't happen because they would never do that. They're good people. They took an oath. It'll happen.
Speaking of things that can't happen, Ars Technica has the next story.
Yeah, this is amazing. And it's amazing just the trouble they went through. But you got to think they're reaping large rewards here. This is a DNS attack that completely replaces a domain, probably with a slight misspelling, but using certificates and everything, you would never know it. So it's a phishing, but when you get phished, the experience is 99% perfect.
Seamless.
A DNS hijacking wave is targeting companies at an almost unprecedented scale. Clever trick allows attackers to obtain a valid TLS certificate for hijacked domains. So basically they're using DNS. You could log into different service providers and not even realize that an attacker has been in the middle between you and the website that you were trying to get to. But the bad news is, because they're able to obtain an SSL certificate or a TLS certificate, they can steal your credentials in the middle. So you don't even necessarily know that anything has gone wrong.
Yeah, because it redirects you to the correct site.
Well, it sort of passes it through. But once you log in, you are taken back to where you belong.
Yeah.
They just now have your credentials.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant.
Smooth.
But it's terrible. Now, this story
Speaking of the opposite of brilliant.
This is, how could you not have known?
Well, he had a blue check mark on
true.
Facebook.
You know what?
It's impossible.
You bring up a good point. The blue check mark. I mean,
it's a blue check.
This is probably the first time in recorded history that a blue check mark has been violated for personal gain.
Yes.
I don't think we've got the whole story here. So this is a follow-up to the story that we did on the GoFundMe Fund the Wall thing. So GoFundMe is refunding all the donations made to the Fund the Wall campaign. Who could have guessed? So Brian Colfage, the veteran behind the GoFundMe campaign that was raising money for a wall along the U.S. southern border, reportedly grew a lucrative email list using shadowy techniques. Yeah, it's like, but the blue check.
And this was not the first time he's done this. It turns out he has run a lot of right-wing campaigns and websites. And actually, one of the sites that he'd worked with in the past has outed him, and I think produced text messages saying that, yes, I'm able to get people to submit/steal email addresses. And so he has 3.5 million email address list that is very lucrative because these are people who are well known to be conservative and willing to donate or purchase conservative related items.
Because they gave to the Build the Wall campaign.
Exactly. So he's not stealing the GoFundMe money, as a lot of people might have suspected. It's better than that. He's found a way to monetize it on the side.
It's despicable, but it's kind of like, it's also sort of brilliant in a horrible sort of way.
But he does have the blue check mark.
It is extra despicable because he's using his, of course, you can't take away, he lost his arms and legs in a war. And I guess he's making lemonade, but he's making it with just a pinch of cyanide, I think. So, yeah.
Makes it taste better.
I think the better analogy is that he's selling people lemonade that has a little bit of urine in it.
Yeah, but I mean, how would you make money from it? I guess you would make extra money.
It's a topic from another time.
But, yeah, so bad news if you were hoping that the wall would be privately funded through GoFundMe. It's not going to happen.
No. Fell a little bit short of its $5 billion funding goal.
It got to 15 million.
15 million,
I think, yeah.
That seems about the limit of...
The stupidity.
But all those rubes who donated that money got their email stolen, and they're going to be bombarded with right-wing propaganda. I'd probably love it.
Yeah,
preaching to
so
the
it probably
choir.
matter.
Well, the Chinese, they have data leaks just as often as we do, and this last one was pretty extreme.
200 million Chinese resumes leak in a huge database breach. So Chinese people have websites for finding jobs just like we do. 200 million resumes. This is bad for phishing and, the whole fake identity things. Like it's like, what street did you grow up on? Might be on the resume.
What was your first job?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
The street you grew up on might not be on your resume, but maybe.
Well, you can...
Address history.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
They point out that Chinese resumes are actually much more invasive here than they are here in the West. You put things like height and weight and sometimes blood type and favorite flavor of Kool-Aid, stuff like that. So...
Tell a lot by people's favorite flavor.
Identity theft is almost guaranteed for some of those 200 million people. Sorry.
Ouch.
Well, DuckDuckGo sort of prides itself as being the non-spying search engine. That's really the only reason to use it, right?
Well, it's also a competent search engine. It's surprisingly good.
Yeah, well, Google's good too.
Well, Google has the side of Orwellian surveillance.
There's a bad part of it, but DuckDuckGo, I think without that they would never compete, and that's why this was pretty upsetting to them.
Beta News has an article that says DuckDuckGo denies using fingerprinting to track its users, and so at issue here is a JavaScript API that DuckDuckGo has implemented for their search, and it looks to some researcher like DuckDuckGo is collecting a lot more information than they should on that JavaScript API. DuckDuckGo says it's to improve the user's search experience and that there's no personally identifiable information there. The researcher says that they get enough information that they could probably identify individual users. I looked at it. I'm more on the side of DuckDuckGo than the researcher, but there are some unanswered questions here.
They pulled a selection from the documentation of the thing where it was like oh no, that was from DuckDuckGo.
Yeah,
but they talk about how fingerprinting techniques cause false positives, and they don't do that way. But they also didn't specifically say what they were using it for, which I think would have defended them much more.
Yeah, I think what kicked all this off was somebody's browser plugin was like, oh my gosh, the search engine is hitting a JavaScript API, which, ad companies usually use that kind of a technique to do stuff. Yeah,
there's a Firefox plugin you can get that does flag DuckDuckGo as this thing. And they do admit to using that API. And they just say they're not using it for anything nefarious.
DuckDuckGo says that it's just a scorched earth approach, I think were their exact words, that works that way. But, that's a lot of the problem we have with our tabs. Is like when we leave a tab and come back to it and it's out of memory, it's like, what happened here? And it's like, well, there was JavaScript running amok in the background doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
DuckDuckGo, I haven't used it much, but I'm pretty sure it's just like Google, right? Big white page with a search box. So there's no reason.
We need to customize the user experience.
I mean, even on mobile, that's the same exact thing. So
I can imagine some scenarios because Google has been, eerily prescient about some search results that I typed in that on their own would be completely ambiguous. But given the last 15 minutes search history, it knew the kind of content that I was looking for with those search terms. And so it did. I could gather that multiple searches in a row might give context, and maybe they might use the API for that.
Yeah, but that's still against what DuckDuckGo stands for, I think.
It could be.
They're certainly not worth it, whatever it is. Well, we talked last week. Was it last week about the EU bug bounty?
The EU bug bounty.
The official bug bounty was pretty sweet. I think Putty was like 97 grand, which sounds amazing, right? Until you look at the competitors.
Motherboard is saying, well, now you can get $1 million for hacking WhatsApp or iMessage. Now, these are hacks that result in a complete root of an iPhone. But if you can, find a vulnerability in iMessage that results in being able to remote take over a phone or take over a phone through a malicious iMessage, well, you can get $1 million.
Now, with the EU bug bounty, that will go toward fixing the software. That is not the case here.
This is just you getting money.
This will go toward them using your exploit to go after a high-level target.
Well, think about Gray Key. I mean, Gray Key's, $10,000 a pop times tens of thousands of sales to law enforcement times, you know, the really high-end package to governments around the world. I mean, it's
a license to print money.
Yeah.
So this is actually small potatoes compared to that. But this is also a one-time hit. Gray Key has to keep working.
Yeah.
So this is to go after either, you know, some state enemy or a high-level criminal. You know, so maybe you stop a drug lord. Maybe you catch an ambassador's wife cheating on him. You know,
what's the over/under for like Level 1 reporting on the news story where there was a security researcher who bought into one of these bug bounties, and you know it was through like some company in Chicago, and he did the thing, and they paid the $1 million, and then like 4 years later, the feds bust in, arrest the guy, and it turns out that he was working for like, you know, Putin and didn't even know it. And it's like, you sold the vulnerability to the Russians, and that hurts our national security. Like, that's going to happen. We're going to cover that story at some point.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, blaming the car manufacturer for the accident. But I could see the state totally ignoring that parallel.
Yeah. It's like, you got to come to work for us, and we won't throw you in jail. But it's like, can I get paid? No.
No, that's not the way this works.
You did something that we're going to twist into a horrible mistake that you should have known better.
They'll use Aaron Schwartz prosecutor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They just keep him in their pocket for when they need to do a tech related.
I was working for an American company. I didn't know.
Well, if you trade Ethereum Classic, real bad news for you.
Coinbase has suspended Ethereum Classic trading after double spend attacks. Attackers carried out 11 double spend attacks and stole nearly 85,000 ETC, which is worth about 460,000 US.
They updated that after the story. The number of attacks went like up to the 20s or even more, and it's over 1 million.
I think that this has happened in the past when Ethereum was much smaller. I bet they just roll it back.
I don't know. So what happened was bad actors got control of most of the mining network. So they were able to, like, these were real transactions. So if you didn't make a transaction, I think you're fine. But they were able to route those transactions to their own wallets instead because they were in control of the entire mining network. So
it's not good. That's maybe not good for Ethereum being, you know, the whole cryptocurrency ecosystem for, you know, Captain.
Well, I think the new Ethereum has some safeguards against that, right? That's why this is classic.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe dead now.
We talked about Windows 7 and the failed update, and just one in the long line of failed updates for Windows. And this maybe makes this sting a little bit worse because sometimes not getting a Windows update saves you from a lot of pain.
Windows 10 is going to grab 7 gigs of your storage so big updates don't fail, according to ZDNet. The reserved storage is coming with the next Windows 10 version is another reason to avoid PCs with little storage. Now, this is, like, I don't think this is really a huge deal, but Microsoft has been selling Surfaces even up through now today with only 128 gigs of internal storage.
Well, they point out 32 gig notebooks that are for sale with Windows 10.
Oh yeah, like the netbooks. I didn't even think about those.
So I mean,
that's terrible.
You get what's the Windows 10 footprint now? Like 10 or 15?
If your side by side configuration goes nuts, it'll be like 35 gigs.
So you plus 7, 35 plus 7 minus 32. That's something right there.
Yeah, the 32 gig is not. I think that like the Surface 3, not the Surface Pro 3, I think they had a 64 gig version of that if memory serves. But even at 128 gig, there's not enough room for. I mean, that's smaller than a gnat's ear.
What about all that 4K home footage that you're going to make with your
all 12 seconds of it?
Your 1 terabyte SSD card. You can't even copy it over.
You should only afford the 1 terabyte SSD. Not
they have a micro SD slot. I think the biggest one you can get there is 512 gigs, but you could add user storage with the SD card, but because it's on a USB interface, it's actually really flaky. So like it'll disconnect and reconnect because Microsoft is.
Well, we've talked about deep fakes a lot, and deep fakes wasn't actually about the technology as much as making the technology super easy to use. And if you remember Modlishka, which was the horrible two-factor exploit that we talked about like a couple of weeks ago maybe, this is kind of the deepfakes of that. They have fully automated it.
This new tool automates phishing attacks that bypass two-factor. So trust and two-factor authentication has slowly been eroded in the last month by the release of Amnesty International report and Modishka tool. So yeah, this is, it's like if you're a malware author, it's never been easier. Just drop this into your project and you're good to go.
This is, you fish them, but in the process of fishing them, you wait for that two-factor and you grab that as well. And this makes it ridiculously easy, which means it will be used a lot. So you really, really have to be careful what you click on. Cannot stress that enough.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, this was the systemd argument early 2018 or late 2017?
No, systemd has been, so like the idea with systemd is that startup scripts are not sophisticated enough to handle complex dependencies. And so you have two camps, the people that work in the enterprise that have like really ridiculously complicated setups and they're like, man, we need systemd. And then you have the other camp of Unix is layers and layers and layers of simplicity that create complex emergent behavior, and we must stick and ruthlessly fight for the brilliance of the simplicity. And systemd has had a number of architectural problems and a number of vulnerabilities, and there's no end for that in sight.
That was a lot of words, none of which had anything to do with my question. When was the controversy? I can't remember, but it was recently. There was the camps that were saying, we must never have systemd, and the other camps are like, you're being ridiculous, it's way better. And
give me the D.
Those are the camps, but it's an ongoing feud.
And one of them has a great argument this week.
Yeah, so Linux systemd affected by memory corruption vulnerabilities, and there are no patches. So
Look how tiny that headline is.
This it's not for people with normal.
No, I
vision,
can read it, but like it's so small compared to everything.
So this has to do with journaling and overflowing memory. Because systemd journals everything, you can pack that journal full and overflow some memory, and that will actually give you access or let you pull data from the memory that you're not supposed to.
From the target system, yeah.
And some distributions have already dealt with some of these exploits, not all of them. Some of them, especially even enterprise ones, have done nothing.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be really much of a plan to do it anytime soon.
Yeah, it's difficult to exploit, but it would...
Can be done over a network, though.
Yeah, especially if you've got remote logging. Just if you've got access to dump stuff into systemd's log, you're basically screwed.
Ouch. Well, last week we talked about 2 weather apps that you don't want anything to do with. There was the weather.com one, and then there was the Chinese one, which was much worse.
Much worse, yeah.
More bad news about the Chinese one.
Yeah, malware has been found pre-installed on some Alcatel smartphones. The malware is also available inside an official Alcatel app available through the Google Play Store. So this is pretty deep and pervasive. Now the question becomes, is Alcatel in on it, or is it one of their suppliers?
I think it might have just been like, oh, look at all these fancy apps that are already on your phone.
Yeah.
Because weather app is obvious.
Yeah,
right?
I'd say weather's usually one of the first ones like that people either install or they already like put on their home screen.
But this one was especially bad because it would subscribe you to things.
Yeah. The idea with these apps was commercial exploitation as much as spying. So you can sell your data passively, and it's like you don't know that you're being abused, except for it's like, oh, there's all this stuff going on. But also just, I'm going to subscribe you for this service that's $1 or $2 a month, and it's like, what is this on my bill? How did they do this? And then you have to like call and cancel and deal with it. If you do that at a low enough volume, people don't even notice.
Alcatel, not a huge name.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't recognize it when I first read it.
Well, the another blast from the past was the NotPetya attack.
We talked about when Oreo, like the Oreo factory, was shut down because of NotPetya.
Some of the biggest brands in the world got hit with ransomware, and they had to shut down their warehouses for some time. And that's big money. I mean, those warehouses, we're cranking out Oreos around the clock. It takes a lot of Oreos to satisfy
People will pay a lot
demand.
for an Oreo.
It's a hard job, but the U.S. is happy to do it.
And so, obviously, when that happens, you have insurance, right? Well, maybe you don't.
Mondelez sues insurer Zurich over 100 million cyber attack claims. So the U.S. food company that owns Oreo, Cadbury brands, etc., is suing its insurance company Zurich for refusing to pay out on a $100 million claim for damage caused by the NotPetya cyber attack. The insurance company is saying, look, this was a nation-state attack, and you're not insured against that, basically.
I think ultimately they blame North Korea for NotPetya, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, well, not only is it a government attack, but also it's not what they call physical damage to equipment.
Yeah.
Although in most cases, I don't think they were able to recover most of the stuff.
Yeah, the data.
So we need to see their policy to really know what was covered and what wasn't.
Well, we're going to see a lot of it because there's going to be a court case because they are suing to try and get that money. Now, these days, you will get a separate insurance policy for cyber attacks. But NotPetya was one of the first big ones.
Yeah.
So that probably wasn't as much of a thing in those days.
A lot of those policies do, even the cyber attack policies specifically exclude actions by nation states. You have to be like, just the run-of-the-mill criminals, or it's like if this is attributed to a nation state, it's your SOL.
This is like
it's wartime.
You get home insurance and then you find out it's not flood insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this.
Did you discover that recently? Did you discover that recently?
I don't think mine does flood insurance, but I am pretty high, so I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, her too, apparently.
I think that's the first time you've jumped on the bandwagon. Well, there was some debate among ourselves here. We're not sure if this is a University of California in
like a satellite campus?
Hong Kong or somewhere in Asia,
or if the news is just coming out of Hong Kong,
or if they are here and doing an exchange program.
So the University of California in California, I don't know, there's a University of California of lots of other places, maybe of Hong Kong, tells students not to use WeChat or WhatsApp in China. And so there's growing tensions. There was the Chinese national that was arrested in Canada at the behest of the U.S. We're going to talk about another Chinese, or I guess a Polish national arrested in Poland. It's an executive. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so there's some things are happening with tension, and some Canadians were arrested in China for ambiguous reasons. So yeah, the university's like, hey, students, just so you know, yeah.
Yeah,
it's probably not a bad thing to tell your students. I mean,
right. Just don't even bother, because they're for sure monitoring those things, and anything they see that they don't like will get you in some trouble. Actually, usually we've covered government at this point because it's kind of weird that we have to wait till Friday. But
yeah,
the Twitter crackdown is getting crazy in China. I mean, it was already crazy, but it's getting
next level.
Yeah, they really.
I feel like somebody should let the Chinese authorities know that Twitter's kind of on its way out, and no one cares.
Dude, you need to be cracking down on Instagram.
That is that's where the younger kids use Instagram and Snapchat.
Well, CES, one of the big things that comes out of CES is the car manufacturers. They announce a lot of new stuff at CES. And one of the trends that we've seen this year is very disturbing. But if you think about it, we've already got several car companies, Tesla being the most notable, that are already doing this.
Move aside, backseat driver. New tech CES monitors you inside the car. This is just, there's a camera in a car pointed at you, but a lot of cars already have this. Like the whole,
well, it's not just a camera.
Well, they want to sell the data.
But the software does a variety of things.
Yeah.
Like, it knows when you're wearing your seatbelt. It knows when you're not paying attention. It knows if you fall asleep.
It knows when you're awake.
It definitely knows when you're awake.
It knows when you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
Most cars already have that. They have like the you're falling asleep sensor, and they have your eyes are not moving around, and you don't seem to be alert sensor. So this is not really news.
Well, I think the news is this is going to be in every car. Every company pretty much talked about this, and
every car has a satellite connection now.
Not just that, but they pointed out how happy they were going to be to sell driver data to other companies. So maybe you get an advertisement. It's like, hey, you want to buy some caffeine pills because you are sleepy.
How long until Ford brand car insurance, and they will only insure the people that never drive?
Well, yeah, I guess. How would they just immediately invalidate the policy when you step in the car?
Yeah. It's like, oh, you did a thing, your policy's canceled, because that would be in your policy.
This would also be bad for someone borrowing your car.
Oh yeah. Unrecognized driver, policy canceled.
Right. Well, the another big thing about 2018 was the live cameras on your door. Remember, Amazon actually is now using them to police the world for porch pirates. Almost as like a crowdfunding spying operation. They are feeding facial recognition from people who walk up to your door, And of course, Ring,
behavior recognition.
Ring is theirs. Nest is the Google one, and we know what Google's up to. So it's kind of crazy, but it gets even crazier.
Yeah, so Nest competitor Ring reportedly gave employees full access to customers' live camera feeds. And these camera feeds were being processed by computers. So what was going on in the picture was being classified by computers. Like the whole AI thing, like when, the guy in China walks by and he doesn't have any pants on, and he's got the red square around him, and it's like, there's a 35-year-old male with no pants. Remember that demo? We looked at that demo here on the news. Ring has been doing that on your front door.
Not just your front door. Some people have these in their home, too.
Oh, wow.
Which makes it a little more weird.
A lot of randos have had access to that feed.
Well, they're not quite rando. They work at Ring. So all of the high-level executives and the dev teams and probably security teams and stuff like that needed nothing more than your email address to tap into your camera and search. And you could search by keywords like kissing or handgun. And the camera was like, oh, yes, I've seen several instances of handguns in this household. Let me show them to you.
And that's terrifying to think about.
You think naked was one of them?
I bet naked was one.
Well, see, again, this kind of data, like we go back to our previous story on like the car, the vehicle stuff, just that kind of software for the insurance company, and it's like, oh, you've had firearms in the vehicle like 4 times. We're going to cancel your policy.
So yeah, they claim, yes, this is true, but it was never violated. No one ever did anything irresponsible.
Oh, this hyperbole.
And someone did point out, an ex-employee pointed out, I was like, yeah, if I got an email from a reporter, I knew in the back of my mind, all I had to do was take that email and punch it into the system.
Yeah, and that's scary.
Yeah. So.
That's not horrifying at all.
All I had to do if I wanted to see his junk was like type naked in his email address.
We laugh about that, but that's really like actually a really terrible thing.
That for sure has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, Friday will be a crazy day. Government and nonsense. Some of would say, that's redundant, right? But we do have a bunch of nonsense this week too.
Neat.
As much business came out of CES, nonsense came as well.
It's amazing there's so much government news with the shut down government.
Well, some of it's foreign.
Most of it. Well, a chunk of it. See you then.
Bye. Today's Friday, which means the week is over, and it's the 18th, and everything's going to be better because it's the weekend.
Is it though?
No.
It might be.
I mean, you've seen the Level 1 news. You know the kind of news we cover. It's not going to be fine.
The Level 1 news.
There's never been one week where it was like, oh, the news is good this week.
No.
Oh, we've had some good news, like when they got all the Thai boys out.
Tiny bright spots and a large pool of human waste.
But we can laugh at the nonsense, and that's what this episode is about. But first, we need to get through the government news, which is also a special type of nonsense.
This is, maybe you could classify this as good news, I think, right? Like, it's accountability.
Politicians cannot block social media foes, a U.S. appeals court has ruled. So this was a politician that had a Facebook page, and they blocked somebody from commenting on there. And this U.S. appeals court has said, no, you can't do that. You're doing
a public figure.
You're doing stuff in a public forum, in this case, Facebook.
They didn't just block, though. They were accused of some sort of, corruption. They deleted the post and all the replies and then blocked. So they were really trying to cover something up. Now, of course, this will be case law that will now be considered probably in Trump's Twitter case, which is in the appeal process.
Neat.
Well, we talked about Gatwick Airport and how it was absolutely paralyzed by those evil drones, and we still don't know.
There's no detail. There's no follow-up.
They might have never been a drone. And there also might have never been a drone at Heathrow.
London's Heathrow Airport was briefly halted after a drone sighting. There was only one sighting, and they couldn't substantiate it, but that grounded all the flights nonetheless.
Droning is the new swatting.
It really is. For airports.
Well, I mean, I guess it's really funny if you don't have an airplane that's like, oh, look, I shut down the airport.
But what if you're late for a flight?
Don't do that.
What if you're like, I'm going to be an hour late. There's no way I'm going to make this plane.
If you really want to, go to archive.org and watch some advertisements for flight in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, it looked like air travel was glorious. Now it's an excruciating, terrible mess that no one wants to do.
Everybody was wearing a suit.
Yeah,
And,
everyone was dressed up.
Like when they would serve the meal, they'd bring like a whole turkey to the table and carve it in front of you. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, what happened?
It's not good.
Well, the government shutdown continues, and no signs of it letting up. Although, actually, by the time you see this, maybe something magical will have happened.
Something magical.
We're going to declare war on the state of emergency.
But one unexpected thing that has been affected by that is our government websites.
Yeah, government shutdown. TLS certificates not renewed. Many websites are down. Over 80 government websites are down after their certificates have expired, and nobody is on hand to renew them. Also, pro foreign government tip, no one is monitoring those websites. So if you're going to break in, find those Apache struts, vulnerabilities, whatever, now is probably the time.
I'd say that was probably a pro-criminal tip and not just a... Yeah.
Pro state actor tip.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, like, what are criminals going to find at the, like the shutdown Department of, like, Veterans Affairs or whatever? I don't...
Oh, they'll find plenty of
the
corruption.
national park data.
A lot of wasted money. A lot of covered up suicides, probably. That's a dark place. Well, in Canada, they have, you can say a lot about the Canadians and how they're just, are inferior in every way, but not when it comes to protecting your data.
Canada got a law earlier this year that says that customers have the right to know what's going on with their data and how it's being used. And Bell wants permission to gather and track customer data. Presumably, they're already doing it here in the U.S. because they have a common ancestor. Bell.
Now,
AT&T,
they are not phrasing it the way that we are. They're saying, hey, would you like more targeted ads that are relevant to you? And that translates into, we're going to sell your data.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't read that, though, and think, I don't want to see ads at all?
Well, the Canadians, they're such a gentle, simple people.
So polite.
Yeah. So it's easy to...
It's the syrup they have as their blood.
Well, flashing back to 2018, was it 2018 or 2017?
It might have been 2017.
A long time ago, there was a fairy tale company called Cambridge Analytica, and they were never brought to justice. But now they're brought to a tiny, tiny shred of justice.
Not really, but okay. TechCrunch says Cambridge Analytica's parent has pled guilty to breaking a UK data law. So there was a guy who requested his data. They basically told him to get lost. And
They give him a little bit of data, but it wasn't anything significant.
Yeah, and so he went back to the regulatory agency and was like, hey, they're not giving me the data that I requested. And so they pled guilty to that. It's a $15,000 fine, but if other people do this, then...
It'd be per person $15,000. 15,000 pound.
Yeah, so I don't think anything really changed here.
A small victory.
GDPR does not apply in this case. They dodged the bullet in that case.
Well, El Chapo, the Mexican drug lord, or was he Colombian or Mexican? He was Mexican, right?
I think Colombian.
Was he Colombian? Anyway, he was a drug lord. And he was a very, very rich man, and he was meticulous. Remember his mining tunnels?
He had some good operational security.
He was a very smart man when it came to being a criminal. And everybody's always wondered what was the chink in the armor for El Chapo, and now we know.
The feds cracked El Chapo's encrypted communications network by flipping his system administrator. Yeah, so there was an expired SSL certificate, but also El Chapo
noticed.
It was, I think the more fascinating thing here is that this all started too with he had software on his mistress's phone. So he had a wife, and he had two mistresses that looked exactly pretty much like his wife. And he wanted to keep tabs on what they were doing, so he installed spyware on their phones. And that's a commercial company that provides that spyware. And so once he had access, the feds also had access.
That is not what they describe here at all.
That was the thing that happened. That was part of it.
So the sysadmin, the amazing thing about this, if you look at what really strikes me is, imagine if a certificate went down in the U.S. government. Would the politicians have any clue?
You mean like we just learned about from the shutdown? Because that's literally the thing that happened?
Well, but I mean, like, would they call somebody up and be like, oh, hey, my certificate's down?
No.
They'd just be clicking those exception buttons. It's like, no, show me the...
I want my thing.
These drug lords called this guy up immediately, and they were like, bro, what are you doing? This is your job. We know what's happening here. This is insecure. We cannot have this.
I kind of would love to have any client like that, really.
But
they would notice something like that.
The truth was, it wasn't a mistake. he let that security certificate expire so he can install the Fed's security certificate. And they busted him for, he was trying to make a side deal. That's always how they do it, right? Yeah. You give a job to somebody and they try to make, they want to be the drug lord too. So they try to make their own deal. And it's always with a cop.
Oops.
Terrible. Just know your place in the cartel. Come on. Pro criminal tip.
Know your place in the cartel.
There's going to be so much interesting stuff that comes out of that case. It's going to be fascinating.
Well, we talked about the DNS hack where they would, grab your DNS and switch it out and feed you the same web page and steal your credentials. It turns out the blame has been placed.
We talked about this earlier in the week, the technical aspects of this. In the government section, ZDNet is blaming Iranian hackers. So it's not the Chinese or the Russians this time. It's the Iranian hackers. They've been suspected in a worldwide DNS hijacking campaign. You might want to change your passwords.
They do point out that based on the targets so far, there would be no financial reason to do this. These are enemies of the Iranian state. So could be the Chinese, though. Just, smoke and mirrors. Yeah. You never know. They're playing 4D chess over there. And in Germany, they're not playing any chess because they can't reorder chess supplies.
Gizmodo has the article that Amazon dash buttons are ruled illegal in Germany, but not for the reason that you think. That would be the clickbait headline.
With a picture of a Tide button on a washing machine.
These are if you haven't seen those, the dash buttons is like you put the Tide button on your washing machine, and when you're out of Tide, you just hit the button, and more Tide magically shows up at your house.
And then when your toddler finds it, a lot of Tide
shows up.
So in the agreement that you have with Amazon for reordering Tide, they might substitute a product. So when you hit the Tide button and they don't have any Tide, you might get something else. Or you might get a different SKU of Tide or something. Well, under German consumer protection laws, you cannot do that.
They also pointed out that this removes any possibility of price comparison. Yeah. Because you're just blindly buying it.
Personally, like if you are rich enough to purchase Tide on a regular basis like that, like I wouldn't want to be substituted. Like if you send me some other like low grade shit after I've ordered Tide, I'd be like, excuse me?
I use Tide, and up until recently I was using the pods.
You were eating them, right?
I'm a high roller when it comes to laundry detergent.
I wonder if we could like dig up Alexander Graham Bell and be like, look, your invention of the telephone is going to lead to this global communications network that ultimately, just before the human race wipes itself out, is going to result in the Amazon dash button. I wonder if he would come back to his lab and just burn everything.
No, he'd probably think that was cool.
It would probably just, like, his mind would be so blown by all of it that he would just be catatonic for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I use all free and clear for my detergent. They don't have a button for that.
Don't be shilling your detergent here.
I've shilled it in the forums, too. Someone asked for a...
You need to reach out to them and see if we can get a check.
Have you seen the... I don't think this is what you're talking about, but I think Tide makes a version that comes in the clear bottle and it's just brown. And it's more expensive, but it's because they don't use any artificial stuff.
Yeah, no perfumes or anything. That's what I get for my detergent. Cause
I thought that was name brand.
No, the all isn't. I mean, I guess it is. There's a brand on it, but it's not as expensive as Tide. I get it because my skin is sensitive.
We're going to charge them more and use less artificial stuff.
Yeah, really.
It's brilliant.
I mean, basically, they're just stopping the production process at an earlier stage and
they
bottling
played us.
it. Yeah. Well, another story out of Germany. It turns out they've had some bombings, and the bombings didn't go well. They were a failure, but you still have to try to find the bomber, right?
Yeah, this was like a ransom bomber or something. He was ransoming DHL and it's with some pipe bombs or something. But the ZDNet article is that the German police are asking router owners for help in identifying a bomber's MAC address. So we get the MAC address here. This MAC address would seem to resolve to a Motorola telephone, but if you run a hotspot or anything like that, search your DHCP logs for that MAC address and see if you've seen it.
Have you seen this MAC address? That makes me think about, how when you get those free newspapers and there's like, have you seen me, the missing kids? We've entered a strange new world because it used to be that the picture of the kid would be like a bad Polaroid or them really young and they would have to like doctor it to make them look older. Now it's almost universally just stupid selfies because we've entered this world where everybody has stupid selfies. So it's like a kid sticking their tongue out or doing the peace sign, or it's like, wow.
We don't have any normal
I don't even want to find this
non-staged
kid.
photos.
I remember a time when you couldn't have a picture of anybody smiling because it took too much effort to smile for as long as it took to take the picture.
Yeah, so you always just...
Where you're holding up the powder charge?
Yeah.
Well, China, we all know about the Huawei executive who is imprisoned in Canada, and that's leading to some global tension. It turns out another country is in the mix.
Poland. So China has voiced grave concerns over Poland's arrest of a Huawei sales director on spying charges. This is the sales director that's in charge of the region that Poland is in. He is a Polish national, so he does not have diplomatic immunity or anything like that.
And he is former senior intelligence agent.
Huh.
Yeah. So he had some access.
He did. Things are not looking good for Huawei. Maybe there is something to this whole Huawei thing after all.
Was that the article with, like, it was had his face blurred, but it was, like, just barely?
It was,
we should show them that. Scroll down a little more.
Such a poor job.
I mean, I feel like I could pick him out on the street based on this, but...
Like, you can count these pixels.
Yeah.
Not a Bluetooth user either.
Not many of them.
Can't we use that AI for reconstructing the face that we learned about a couple episodes
I'm pretty
ago?
sure any AI could deal
that
with
seems
that.
simple.
So we talked about Twitter last week in China, and the Chinese were visiting people in person because of tweets. But it turns out that story goes a lot deeper, and it gets a lot more disturbing.
Yeah, so the New York Times has this. Twitter users in China face detention and threats in new Beijing crackdown. So there have been a lot of corroborating reports coming out about people's accounts just being deleted and torture, maybe, abduction,
15-day detention.
I don't know about beatings. Beatings qualify as torture, probably. Probably.
Well, I guess it depends on
Get a chain to a chair.
the length and severity of the beating.
An interrogation. I mean, it's just things are not good with Twitter in China because things are. But it's again, Twitter is not really relevant. So.
But it kind of is because the Chinese government uses it.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Which is weird, as do as we say and not as we do. Which is a recurring theme in government, isn't it?
Where have we seen that before?
Well, modern, online dating used to be kind of a stigma.
A scary place.
But it's become so ubiquitous that you never know who you will find.
It's just better.
Everybody's using it, so you have to kind of be careful what you admit.
This would be a Fox News story. Hunter boasted on dating app about poaching deer, not realizing that her potential suitor was a game warden. Oops.
There she is. Poor little guy. So you can see the conversation here. This person is like, oh, look, I just got this deer. I'm having a really great day. And the game warden was like, oh, you used a bow, right? Because it was bow season. And she was like, let's not talk about that. So eventually she admitted that not only did she use a rifle, but she also spotlighted it. Because, like, deers get hit by cars because when they see bright lights,
they freeze.
They just stop. And if you take a spotlight with you hunting, you can use that to easily kill them. She admitted to doing both of those things and paid a hefty fine. I don't think they went on a date.
I think that they might have.
What a terrible person. What sort of terrible person would do something like that or make a deal about advertising and then back out, or not really back out, but just
smooth transition?
Well, I think Elon Musk really missed the boat here, not putting the Tesla logo on this car, considering he is now, of course, going to make them fly as his latest promise.
The Blade Runner 2049 studio sues automaker for not living up to flying car deal. This is a long article.
That doesn't say much,
and it really doesn't. So it was Peugeot, yeah. It's like I think they're French.
They're definitely
European, and it was like, oh, maybe Peugeot is going to come back to the United States, maybe not, but it was going to be in this Blade Runner movie, and they agreed on this deal where there were actually a bunch of auto companies that were competing for the advertising rights for the movie. Peugeot won. But it might have been that at least according to this, the movie people think that Peugeot never actually really intended to follow up with $30 million of advertising for the movie because they just didn't want the advertising to go to some other auto manufacturer.
And something that Krista can certainly relate to, Peugeot blames it, presumably, on not being able to agree on the creative.
Oh, the rounds and rounds and rounds of revisions, and I don't know, and I'm just not going to respond to you for 3 weeks.
How many different executives do you think had to look at that and weigh in?
More than I've probably ever worked
and
with.
add their ideas to it.
Hey, can you bring me a rock? Okay, here's a rock. Oh, that's the wrong rock.
Well, can you tell me a little more about what kind of rock you're looking for? No.
I think you know. Well, this next story, it may seem odd to some of you, but in my high school, they did this to what actually, let's date ourselves. I went to a high school that had a smoking section.
They removed ours right before I went in.
They removed ours during our time there. And so, of course, you had a bunch of kids who were addicted to nicotine. They smoked in the bathrooms. So what do? Pop the doors off those bathrooms.
Well, high school is removing washroom doors to snuff out vaping. So
the new tobacco.
Vaping's a little harder to detect than smoking. So,
no, you can smell it.
Yeah, they have like more pleasant smell, but it's very
It's like,
obvious.
why does it smell like cake and blueberries in the boys' bathroom?
Here's a brilliant idea. I can't believe this just came to me. A vape that smells like the deodorant cakes they put in urinals.
But that goes in your mouth.
Well, it's not an actual urinal cake,
but
it will be completely flying to the radar because it's going to just smell like the bathroom.
Ugh, that
or
might
maybe
be a thing, though.
One that smells like bathroom cleaner.
How long before they start strip searching to detect the kids wearing nicotine patches?
Got to put that in the prison wallet.
How long before they start searching the prison wallet of everybody?
Well, Facebook, as we know, has a real problem with censorship. They tried to let the AI do it, but then we found out that it was just Indian call centers doing the whole thing. So they make a lot of bad choices, and this is another one of those.
This comes to us from a website that's like NOLA.com because it's about New Orleans. So Facebook has censored king cake babies for nudity. This is a New Orleans tradition. These little tiny plastic naked babies.
Yeah, you can see them here.
Nolans.
Now they do have,
Nala.
if you can see here, they have like little tiny penises. Which, listen, babies have penises. Some of them.
Some of them.
Not all of them.
There goes the monetization.
But they sort of, this happened, and they were like, oh, how that's funny because, this was probably just like an AI automated doing this. And they followed up, and Facebook was like, no.
They're just little plastic figurines. I don't really get it.
Apparently, these are inside the cakes that you buy. I've never heard of these.
I've never heard of that tradition, but it doesn't surprise me.
Totally not a choking hazard.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Mardi Gras. This is the minimum dangerous thing that's happening at Mardi Gras. Well, here at Level 1 Techs, this story rings so true.
It hits home. It really does.
It's like
it hurts.
It resonates with us so much that glass is breaking in the studio.
It's from Inc. It's from Inc.com. A new study of 19 million meetings reveals that meetings waste even more time than ever. But there is a solution. And the subheading, pointless meetings will cost U.S. companies a whopping $399 billion in 2019. Maybe it's time to fix that.
So let's itemize what's wrong with meetings. And boy, did they hit it on the head. Poorly organized meetings, yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows what the hell is going on in a meeting.
It makes me angry when someone asks for a call, and I'm like, hi, why'd you want the call? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I just wanted to talk. It's like, you didn't make a list of things you wanted to talk about?
I'm lonely.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does feel like that.
No, that's literally been a thing that's happened with a certain client of ours. Wow. Where, like, you get on there and they're like, they don't have a list, an itemized list of things they want to discuss.
Well, that goes to number 2. Unclear actions lead to confusion. And this one, it's real bad because and a lot of times they'll disagree right on the call. Like, hey, we're going to talk about this. Oh, I thought we were going to talk about this.
Yes.
Bad organization results in a loss of focus. These are all kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But then you get to number 4, which I think should be number 1. Irrelevant attendees.
Yes.
Oh, so many irrelevant attendees.
Meetings are 2 reasons. 1, to bring everybody up to speed on decisions that have been made. Or 2, to make a few select decisions about a thing that needs to happen. And making a decision usually does not involve more than 3 or 4 people.
But let's bring in, this person from accounting and then our intern who just went to go get me a soda and like...
The more people that are in a meeting, the more they feel the need to contribute, and then you have camel built by committee, and it ends badly.
And the last one, inefficient processes, which really, these are all subheadings of the same thing, which is a lot of people who don't belong there have a lot of bad things to say.
Yeah.
And if you go to a meeting, here's one that they left out. That's for sure got to be added here. Some people who don't belong in the meeting are not comfortable just to sit silently.
Yes.
They feel the need to say something to merit them being at the meeting.
Yes.
And it's always bad.
And it always contributes to the misunderstanding later, too, because it's like, now what did you hear? And it's like, oh, I heard this thing that I imagined in my head that's not connected to reality at all. And it's just, you literally have to like try to lead the meeting in such a way that you can ask the same question about 5 different ways to be sure that the answer is consistent, to be sure that everybody else really understands what's going on, because they don't.
That's why I say, like, when someone calls me and they set up a phone meeting, I'm like, what's our itinerary? And then you send them a list sometimes after of like, here's what we discussed and here's what we decided and here's what we're still going to be working on. Like, just to prevent people from going insane. Yeah. And then you have a written record.
Because then later it's like, no, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bloop.
Here's our written record, and here's what you agreed to.
And then they don't care. They just ignore those. So it doesn't even matter.
Not only do I misremember it, I'm literally going to gaslight you until my reality has been substituted into yours.
There are 5 lights. What was it?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the Star Trek reference for once. How many lights was it?
There were 4 lights in reality.
Oh, okay. So that was right?
Yeah.
Well, here, so this week's engagement challenge, and we'll start with you two. Of these 2 things, which do you think is more dangerous to America? Childhood obesity or boob jiggle?
It depends on the size of the boobs, because they may need a reduction, but mostly probably child obesity.
Well, the Wii Fit boxing thing has been rated T for teen for accurately depicting the female. So we watched the video on this.
Yeah, because I was like, maybe it's just really gratuitous and kind of like
the person who reviewed this has a dirty mind. The game is fine.
Yeah, like it's literally just her doing boxing moves. You'd have to really be looking for the jiggle.
They're wrong.
Yeah, I didn't notice the jiggle much at all.
Yeah, the people that did the rating are wrong.
But
it was fine.
They also go to a lot of length to make like the breathing and the shoulder movement and everything.
It's because they're trying to teach you to breathe too.
It's not just the boobs.
Yeah.
Well, you have to learn how to breathe. I mean,
when you're exercising.
Well, I was like 6th or 7th grade. They were doing like the whole Army Fitness Challenge thing or whatever, which I did fine on, but I didn't know not to hold my breath at first. Yeah. And so it was like halfway through, it's like, I'm going to pass out. And it's like, well, you have to learn to breathe while you're doing all these other things. And it's like, oh.
Oh, right. Also, it's just FYI, it's snowing. Ryan, what car do you drive here today?
Oh, I brought the truck. There's no way. No way I was going to drive. It was already raining. Oh. That car has never felt rain.
Does it live in a garage or a covered porch?
I never take it out even if the roads are wet.
Oh, wow.
I never will if I can help it. Well, you know who else maybe has never felt rain? Is Kylie Jenner.
Billionaire.
She lives a bit of a charmed life. And one of those charms is having the most liked post ever on Instagram. But there is a new contender.
An egg. It's an egg. An egg plans to dethrone Kylie Jenner as the most liked Instagram post. I don't get it.
Yeah, scroll down. Hers was, I think, a picture. I guess it's her baby.
I don't understand what's happening here.
There's the most liked picture ever. There's the egg. We checked the egg.
We did check the egg live on Instagram.
It is up to
14.2 million?
14.2.
I think
almost 14.3.
They'll do it.
Probably 14.3 by the time you guys are watching this.
It's a fine egg.
Yeah.
If I were on Instagram, I might throw a vote at it. You know?
I think we might have signed up for a Level 1 Instagram at one point and we never used it.
Is the other picture like far be it for me to advocate for Kylie Jenner, but the other one looks more legit. The egg picture looks like it's
probably a stock photo.
This looks like a camera phone picture, maybe.
No, I think this is her kid.
Yeah. So
it's
she had a manicure done before she went to the hospital.
Stormy with an I. Oh, I bet she named her before the Stormy Daniels thing.
Oh, that was
Oh, gave her a whore name by mistake.
Hopefully, she chose a reasonable middle name.
Webster.
I'm sure. Well, don't all the Kardashians have crazy names?
I thought her last name was Webster. That's
Stormy Webster. That's right. Yeah, I guess it'll be the father's name, right? Let's not
waste any time on that. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it is. It's not uncommon for people who have a fandom over a certain thing or are brought together by a certain belief system to go on cruises together. Wendell, have you ever considered a Star Trek cruise?
I have.
What stopped you?
Don't want to.
My Tante Inga almost had a Star Trek wedding.
Well,
nice.
Somebody could have a Lord of the Rings wedding.
No, I'm not going down that road.
You hear when she says that, the voice behind it says, "My would-be spouse would never let me get away with that."
Yeah,
but I would kind of love it.
it would be kind of fun. But no, I won't do that. I'm not.
Well, maybe you won't go on a Lord of the Rings cruise or a Star Trek cruise. How about one of these?
All aboard the Flat Earth cruise. Just don't tell them about the nautical navigation. So I think about half the flat earthers are in it just for the lulz. I don't think they're really flat Earth, but maybe they are.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, and I think this is a big part of religion too. It's just simply being accepted somewhere.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be accepted, and you need to find a community that will accept you no matter what. And the more fringe a community is, the more crazy it is, the more accepting they are of everybody because they just want numbers.
Is that true of Flat Earth anymore, though?
Of course, yeah. Why not?
Seems like it's a pretty big organization.
Well, you know,
An organization.
there's a lot of disaffected people, and it's social media brings them all together. You know, like there've always been furries. We just didn't know because they were alone. And
Now every
ashamed.
Friday, hashtag Fursuit Friday is trending. I see it in the sidebar on our Twitter account.
well, this is a little bit of an older article. I don't think we've ever covered it. We talked about it on the stream.
I thought we did cover it.
We may have. Well, I'm sure somebody will let us know if we have. But it is a hilarious new thing, a new trend known as icing.
So you've iced the Tesla charger, meaning that you've parked your non-electric vehicle in the charger so that no one else can use it.
It's usually truck drivers, too, as you can see from this picture.
I don't get this.
I stands for internal combustion engine.
Yeah, I don't like what.
Pool's closed.
But
I guess.
But why?
So maybe on some level,
Just to be a jerk.
there's a belief system that if electric cars take over, you will lose the thing you love, which is your pickup truck. But there'll still be pickup trucks. I mean,
Yeah, you still need utility vehicles
these are,
like
yeah,
that.
there's no way that you're not going to have them, even if they're electric.
So I don't. I mean, but we're going to find out that this was actually like a cash campaign by like Faraday Futures or some other competing electric car company to like
Block the supercharges.
I think. I mean, I want to know what's happening behind the scenes to get people riled up enough to do this.
Well, again, it's the same as the flat earthers and the furries. It's social media and the internet is bringing these people together. It's giving them something to do on a Saturday.
I mean, you know, if I grew up during the motor vehicle revolution, and it's like, man, everything's going to go to like 4, 6, and 8 cylinders. I really want 10 cylinders. You can still get a 10-cylinder vehicle. It's going to set you back, but you can still get a 10-cylinder vehicle.
Yeah, but I mean, there's active fuel management, which is
Listen,
There are
disgusting
things
thing.
that you can get to deal with that. I mean, it's a thing.
shouldn't
you
happen.
can't just let people like things. It's not okay.
You must actively, it's like they're happy. This must not be allowed.
Yeah.
Well, Krista, I thought of you when I added this story because I know that 2 things you're fond of is, you know, like prepping and preparedness, as well as high carb junk food.
I do like junk food. That's like my great sin.
Costco has sold out.
27-pound mac and cheese bucket with a 20-year, wasn't it 20 to 25-year shelf life?
I think some places stated it. The Costco site itself just says 20
It
years.
almost outlived the Bezos marriage.
This was their anniversary bucket.
It's a bucket. It's a bucket of single serves too. So
Didn't poop for a month after.
And we'll visit the Costco site here. And there it is, out of stock because it has become insanely popular. You got to get in line.
$90 for that much macaroni and cheese, though.
I mean, that's a
20-year
lot.
supply of mac and cheese for only $90.
Well, it's not a 20-year supply. It just lasts that long.
yeah, like you could just not eat it for 19 years and it would still be good.
180 servings.
Yeah. So you could eat.
So, you know, if you had, I mean, you can't eat mac and cheese every day. But if you did,
Good.
it would last you a good long while.
I'd say that's at least 5 years of mac and cheese on a normal eating schedule.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we'll do for catering at my wedding. Just giant,
Self-serve mac and cheese.
out of a
packets.
bucket.
And serve it in the bucket. Yeah, that'd be the great thing to do.
Bobbing for mac and cheese.
Well, this is news.ku.dk, University of Copenhagen, and nobody has given them the memo, I guess, that gender is a social construct.
The headline is, in VR, boys learn best when the teacher is a drone, and girls learn better from a virtual Marie.
Here's the drone. Looks kind of like the Portal guy.
Yeah, it does look a little bit like Portal.
I can just imagine the boys like, Wheatley is teaching me science.
I don't know how many kids have played Portal at this.
Here is Marie.
So yeah,
very nondescript.
I don't know if they hypothesized why that was, but like, I would think boys might learn better. Maybe because they never see boy teachers.
I definitely remember like Sally Ride the astronaut. Like there was some kind of a thing on closed circuit TV, and like after that, all the girls in class wanted to be astronauts, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they did say that the younger you are, the more this affects you, which makes sense because small children are looking to emulate more than any other child. You know, that's kind of how they learn in their early phases.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wonder. But I imagine they showed them a male VR teacher, right? At some point.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if they've never had a male teacher before.
Male teachers aren't that rare.
I just had a thought about, Star Trek, because, role models in Star Trek, and, it's like female leads in Star Trek, and then I thought Janeway, and it's like, And then I thought the new Star Trek Discovery with the female lead there, and it's like, heaven help us if that inspires a generation of young women scientists and space explorers.
Your racism against new Star Trek.
Yeah.
It blinds you to everything.
I'd rather have Janeway.
Blinded, just like the next story of a Utah driver.
It's the Bird Box Challenge driving edition. They actually did this in the movie, though, which is a spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah, they drove on the looting run. They had to blindfold themselves. They didn't just blindfold themselves. They painted the windows. So there was no chance to see the horrible... Because, of course, you are in the most danger when the driver sees.
Yeah, because you have no control of the car.
Right, exactly. They drove purely by GPS. I don't think that you could actually do that.
Are the monsters like a vampire? Like, could you make some special glasses where you're looking through a mirror?
No. Another spoiler alert, they had a camera system. And one guy agreed to be duct taped to a chair and watch the security system. And he still managed to kill himself, duct taped to the chair.
So I want we need to do a scientific experiment. At what resolution does sanity stay intact? Like, can we send it through?
So you just give like PTSD, extremely traumatized?
We could do a binary search for the appropriate resolution. It wouldn't take any more than like 4 or 6 trials to find the optimum resolution.
But see, here's the thing: as the outside observers, we know that these creatures are actually invisible to the human eye.
Oh.
It's when you look at them, they create visions in your mind. So you actually can never see. But if you see it through video, then it still affects you.
That's weird.
Supernatural.
Yeah.
So they don't have to explain it.
Sounds like a terrible, poorly thought out Deus Ex Machina.
Well, another thing that was poorly thought out was the weekend plans of this prowler in California.
Oh, we mentioned this before, but there's a video of the prowler spending 3 hours licking the doorbell. So... I guarantee you that if this is true, it might have reloaded.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. 3 hours of this.
Yeah, just so
he's sort of gently caressing the doorbell.
He switches angles. That's nice.
How high is he? Schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
What drug is that?
Oh, we get the approach.
Oh, this looks tasty. Oh, yeah.
That's just what?
Have you seen this man?
I don't even.
So these people, because they had the a ring or a nest or whatever that is, they actually saw this video from wherever they were. They weren't at home. So they were just horrified. Now, by the time he did it for 3 hours, but by the time the cops got there, again, never depend on the cops to save you when there's a man licking your doorbell. It takes them more than 3 hours to get there. They couldn't find him, so they are still on the search for this. What
a bizarre! Can you imagine getting that? You're at a nice dinner with your spouse. You're enjoying your meal, and then you get a notification. It's someone's at your door. And you pull it up, and that's what it is.
But I don't know about you. I would have to watch that for the entire.
Yeah, that would be exciting for me. I'm well, we're watching this now.
We're gonna have this is I want case law on the books. That's okay, you get the notification from the thing. You see the guy licking the doorknob. And it's okay, this is cool. Alexa, deploy the bear trap. And then the bear trap just clamps on his leg and he can't run away.
I don't think you can do that.
No, you can't.
You can't booby trap your house.
Absolutely illegal.
You can't, right.
Any kind of unmonitored
But see, it's monitored. See, that's the thing, because you get the notice, and it's like,
you have to be watching it at all times.
Well, no, the computer's watching it at all times. You, the human being,
make the decision.
But this is California. You're not even allowed to shoot people.
Forget that.
If there's an exit that you can get to, instead of fighting back, you have to run away.
I'm not going to live in California.
Well, no, a sane person should.
I mean, beautiful weather, but it's full of earthquakes, and you can't shoot people. What's the point?
And their politicians are something else. Well, this is maybe an example of malicious compliance, but I don't think the barber can be blamed here.
No, the barber did ask about it. Like they actually explicitly talked about that explicitly. The Straits Times has this Chinese man has gotten a shaven play icon in his new hairdo after showing a hairstylist pause video. So what happened here? There was a video of some guy that had a hairstyle that this guy wanted, and so he showed his barber. And the barber the video was paused, and so it had the play button on top of it. And the barber was like, "Okay, cool, I see the hairdo, but do you also want the triangle?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, that's fine." And the barber was talking about the play button when he said the triangle.
Also, look at this, like this annotated.
They want you to make sure you don't miss it.
They've got the finger, but then they're like, "No, put an arrow as well."
It's like a clickbait thumbnail.
Make sure that they know what we're talking about here.
It needs a red circle and a question mark and a face.
Some of the commentary on this noted that a lot of people actually liked it.
Yeah, it's a trendsetter.
I don't know. Like, if you're into the whole like fade and thing like that, I could see that being like a cool thing.
When we were kids, it was big for a little while in our little hometown. Kids were getting the Nike swoosh.
Oh yeah,
carved in, and the barber, he actually had a stencil that he bought.
Oh, so he could do it.
And he would cut it in. Then he would take a marker and he would color it.
Wow.
Yeah. Neat. Oh, Boiler Snake got that when he was a kid.
See, what was popular when I was a kid is like my cousins all had rat tails. It was a little more.
that was more of a timeless classic. The Nike swoosh was a passing trend.
Yeah.
Boiler Snake, he's got the scales, so it was much harder to chip away.
He had
a Nike swoosh.
He had the Nike swoosh and a rat tail at the same time.
But it was a rat that he was eating. And finally,
last piece of news from CES.
We
I didn't realize you put this one at the end.
We often like to end on stories that have to do with sex.
Because they're the most likely to demonetize us, and maybe the censors won't make it that far. This is from The Guardian, though, so I don't understand why, if it's okay for The Guardian, it would not be okay for us.
But it's fine.
This was from CES, and the headline was, "A robotic dildo has been barred from the Top Tech Showcase, prompting sexism claims." So this was CES. This thing actually got an award from CES, and they rescinded the award. But it's the poster child of like gender equality, whatever class of this product is.
I would argue maybe not having any of these kind of items, but if they already made the precedent of having VR porn and sex dolls and stuff, it's like, can you really say you can't have a robotic dildo?
Well,
like,
they did.
Well, see, CES actually used to be at the same time as like this adult show thing. Like they went on at the same time. That hasn't been that way for like 5 years or so. And it's actually the adult thing I think is going on this week or next week maybe.
They've moved it so that way they wouldn't have any overlap in the convention center.
But some of this type of technology still pops up at CES from time to time. So
that makes total sense. Yeah. And they are calling it a robot. That's maybe a bit of a stretch. Now, the thing that struck me about this article is the way that they describe it mimics all the sensations of a human mouth, tongue, and fingers. So it feels like a real partner, not a penis. So you think maybe that factored into it?
What is robotic about it per se?
Well, I'm sure it's like app connected and
it's uploading all your data to the cloud.
You can probably have your partner controlling it from another phone.
You know the Ring doorbells? Imagine a Ring doorbell in this form factor.
I was gonna say, I mean, if it's really technology tied in like that, I feel like you can't say VR porn's okay and not do this stuff too.
Yeah.
A Kegel exerciser. Won in 2016.
Kegel, see, the separation of the Adult Expo and CES was well before then. So, double standard CES?
Yeah, just if you're going to get rid of all the sex stuff, get rid of all of it, not just one thing.
But there's no way they're going to do that because...
The article also went out of its way to mention the engineering team was almost entirely female.
Well, that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because this is clearly a male-excluding kind of product.
Well, I was going to say if you needed beta testers, but... I would think, but...
Do you have the The beta unit, I'm going to take it home tonight. That's my week.
That's worse than the lane supplied bowling shoes. It's like, oh, here you go. That's it for us.
Yeah, that's all we got this week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.